Good evening. For those of you who have just joined us after closed session, welcome to this hybrid regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Providing translation this evening are Tanya Garcia de Mariquin and Francisco Meza. I want to allow the translators an opportunity to explain how to use the interpreting feature on Zoom. And before I do that, a general reminder to all of us at the dais and to anybody coming to the podium to be mindful of the speed in which you speak for our translation purpose, our translators, because it's sometimes when we go on a bit of a quick roll, it's a little bit difficult on the interpretation. So just keep that in mind. And I'll please go ahead and explain the Zoom feature.
Thank you very much. Buenas noches a todos. Bienvenidos a esta reunión. Este es un recordatorio de que estamos proveyendo interpretación simultánea al español a través de Zoom. Una vez que la función sea encendida, si usted ingresó con una computadora, va a ver el icono de un mundo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Por favor, seleccione el canal de español. Si usted ingresó con un teléfono móvil o una tableta, va a tocar su pantalla, va a buscar los tres puntitos en la parte de abajo, va a seleccionar interpretación de idioma, después seleccione el canal de español y por último el botón que diga done, listo o finalizado para que pueda escuchar la junta completamente en español. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I am Lisa Pelosi, Board President, and I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Jeannie Kerr, Laura Simon, Sean Mora, and Jean Marie Wolfe. Student representative to the board, Ms. Carolyn Wagner, is also here this evening. Our district staff tonight in attendance is Superintendent Ruben Aurelio, Assistant Superintendent Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official Mrs. Andrea Stubbs, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board Ms. Erica Madrigal, Executive Assistant to the Assistant Superintendent Ms. Melissa Hansen, and our Director of Technology Mr. Derek Machado. Additional district and site administrators are joining us in the audience this evening. Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Mrs. Mary Allen. District Social Worker and Community Liaison, Mrs. Roxana Plancarte. St. Helena High School Principal, Mr. Benjamin Cinto. St. Helena Elementary School Principal, Dr. Carmen Emery. And the St. Helena Primary School Principal, Mrs. Rebecca Rocha. Thank you all for being here this evening. We are delighted that you're viewing us in person, on television, on Zoom, or on our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.sthelenaunified.org. In connection with items 3A and 3B, the board received information and provided staff with direction. If you could join me now for the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 5A is public comments, and this refers to anybody who wishes to publicly comment on items not on the agenda this evening. We do not have any written comments. Ms. Madrigal, any on Zoom? Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to publicly comment on items not on the agenda? Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll move on to item 6A, which is the presentation by Ms. Carolyn Wagner, please. Thank you.
Good evening. We have quite a bit going on in the month of March at all of our school sites, but especially at the high school. It's very activity-based. Hopefully, as most of you know, our spring musical Oklahoma opens tomorrow night and will be running for 2 weeks. It's really exciting for everybody in the school to see our wonderful performing arts and our students show off all their talents, and also the PAC, which is such a beautiful building. We had our Saints 3-on-3 tournament, which will end tomorrow, which is a tournament that's open to all of our students. It was really nice to bring it back after COVID, so this was the first year that we've done it since then, and we've had some great participation and student support, so we all go into the gym or the field house at lunchtime and watch the teams play, and it's been great. There was a teacher team, so that was really fun, and we saw some people dunk, so very fun week here at the high school. all of our spring sports have also begun, so sadly the baseball game today got canceled, but we've had lots of activities around that. We also had the community forum held by Mr. Heller, and personally I found that really enlightening as a student. I got to hear about the parent perspective and the administrator perspective that I don't always get to see, so that was great to hear about. We also have been planning the 8th grade preview day, which will be held next Thursday. That just means that we're going to take leadership students and staff around school and explain what the high school is all about and try to make that transition from 8th grade to freshman year just a little bit cleaner and smoother so they're not so intimidated by the culture here. We also had AP Preview Week, which is great for all students. It allows us to see our AP and honors options for next year and just have the teachers kind of explain the type of curriculum that we're going to see and encourages students to take a step towards more rigorous classes. Next slide, please. So here you can see our sneak peek to the musical. So some fun pictures. Next slide, please. So at RLS, they're kind of going through a transition phase. They're ending the second trimester and going into the third. So they're wrapping up projects and they're just kind of in that phase between ending everything and beginning everything new. So leadership has been planning a rally in the month of March to keep things interesting and keep the students engaged in their schoolwork, but also to create some school spirit at that site. The 8th graders are also doing their annual Manifest Destiny project, which I think ends in a play that they put on, which is great. I think it's fun and interactive for the kids to do and put on some costumes. When they finish the trimester, the third trimester, they'll go through all their elective rotations, and so kind of leaning back to that 8th grade preview day, it's important that the kids at RLS see all of their options so that then when they get to high school, they can divert into a pathway, so they can get CTE programs and other options. So it's nice that the RLS offers multiple exposure to many different mediums in order to find a pathway in high school. Next slide, please. So here's some second trimester art projects that are being finished. Yeah. Next slide, please. So at the elementary school, it was actually really a great day there. I walked in and there was this huge mural and it had the history of Napa Valley and all these really fun interactive things. And so I guess the third graders have begun learning about the indigenous and native species of Napa Valley, and they're going to foster rainbow trout. So they were so excited about this, and we were talking about what they were going to name the trout and how they were going to feed them, and so it was really fun to see them so excited and happy about the history that they're learning and just really interacting with each other and their teacher. So that was really fun. I also talked to them about the student council, and they did a friendship week, which I heard was very successful, and they said that they were excited to try new initiatives and new spirit days and see what works for their school and what doesn't. So I think that will be a really good program going forward into the next year. And then I was also made aware that the contestants for the spelling bee have been finalized, so that will be very exciting. So this is a mural I was discussing earlier, and I just thought it was beautiful and really brightens up the hallways. Next slide, please. So Read Across America Day occurred last week, and in the TK class, Miss Landis's, I believe, the fire department chief came in and read to the class and just encouraged the whole school to be reading, which of course is wonderful, especially at that age. Really helps break down that stigma about how reading isn't fun, so that's always great. And then in Miss Landis's class, I had the honor of being part of musical chairs where we were learning about the alphabet, and it was very fun, and we talked about teamwork, and we worked together, and it was a blast. And then another thing that I didn't know that was going on at the primary school was the Be Kind campaign, and how they're really encouraging the kids in and outside the classroom to be kind and compassionate to one another. And of course that's always been happening, but the little pins that are red that say Be Kind, they went and they talked about that process, and I think it's great for the kids to be exposed to that at such a young age. And then I was told from one of my peers who goes down there as a primary tutor that there's been a lot more parent and grandparent involvement. So it's really amazing to see the volunteers that come out from our community to support our schools. So thank you. Next slide, please. So here you can see some of the musical chairs, and they have these little plates that have letters on them, and then some of the alphabet art. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. Trustees, any questions or clarifications for Carolyn? Do you happen to know when that spelling bee is, by chance?
I do not.
Okay, I love a good spelling bee. Is Dr. Emery in? Okay, that's great. Thank you.
And I can't wait for Oklahoma. I love a good musical, so.
That's great, thank you so much. Okay, item 6B, I'm very eager and excited about this agenda item, and I'm going to ask Ms. Mary Ellen to come up and share the presentation on our Student Support Services team.
I'm thrilled to be doing this as well. I can honestly say I've been here, this is my 17th year. We started this program 16 years ago. Sarah Carpenter was hired in the district to help coordinate and set up some mental health services in the district. We had one therapist, Sarah Forney, and Sarah Carpenter, and then working with myself to set up a whole system. We are now up to 12 consistent counselors or therapists working within our school system, as well as a district social worker, and also all of the MOUs that we have with outside agencies that come up when we have a need for particular students. So we have come so far. And I just really want to get their faces out to the board members and to the community, because they're often the folks that you don't see, and they're behind the scenes keeping our kids together and helping them navigate the crazy stuff we've had during COVID and before then. So they have been here for years. Some of them have been here for many years. We don't get to see everybody tonight because obviously the weather, but you'll get to see their picture. But I'm just delighted to bring them forward, and I want to thank the board just for putting this in the forefront so many years ago and how far we've come. And so just a big thank you to the board on that. So first and foremost, I just want to thank the folks that are here in the audience, as well as the folks that can't make it tonight. I get to see, and now Roxana gets to see everything that they do, from our school counselors to our 4 therapists to all of our outside agency counselors, and we're just thrilled to have them. They really are the ones that I honestly know, with Karina and Jose, and as well as Selene and Adriana, they were the ones that were doing the Zoom phone calls. They were the ones that were doing telehealth. They were the ones checking on their kids that they had on their caseload before COVID hit. They were constantly making sure our kids were staying connected. And so a huge applause to these folks. As we go through here, I'm going to just introduce the folks that are here as well as the folks that aren't here. And just so you all have a visual, so when you see them, feel free to say hi. They are scheduled at all 4 of our campuses, and we're very honored and blessed to have them. And there's been a lot of commitment from this board and this community to make sure we take care of the whole child, and kudos to that. The why. It's part of the St. Helena District goals and the right thing to do for kids. You just can't focus on academics. There's so many things. If we are going through a hard issue for ourselves, it doesn't stop at the door when we come to work, and neither does it stop at the door when students come to school. If there's things going on, it carries forward, and it's good to have a support system in place for the students to be able to go to and somebody to talk to. Part of our LCAP goals, number 4, support physical and social emotional well-being for the entire school community, and that's what these folks do. And they're part of it. They will continue to be part of it. We will continue to have a focus on our social, emotional, mental health, and physical health of our students. So let's get to our district staff. I think most of you know these folks, but you might not know a few of them. So Terry Linder and Sean Garrity are at the high school. Have been doing an academic tremendous job for COVID because they've had to adjust to what the state puts down as far as how many credits, what they can take, what they can't take, how we adjust, how we not adjust, who they need to meet with. They've been doing a really good job related to that. And they're more academic focused, but they've had to kind of move over into the MTSS and social emotional needs of our students at the high school as well. And then we have Terry O'Leary, who is at the middle school, who's going to be retiring as well. She's been here as long as I've been here, so Terry will be retiring, but doing a fantastic job. Dana Sabin is our TK5 behaviorist and clinical social worker. She's actually a clinical social worker as well, but she's been doing a good job related to trauma-informed care for our kids, setting up calm-down rooms, a variety of things that are age-appropriate for the lower grades. And then I don't think you've met Vanessa Riggs, but she is our school psychologist, and she's in her second year, as Roxana Plancarte is in her second year. And Chris and I laugh about it, but that was a good recruiting year, where we were thrilled with the folks that we hired. And Vanessa has been doing a fantastic job, and Roxana, obviously, is doing a fantastic job. And we're just thrilled to have them as part of the St. Helena team. Our 4 clinical workers, they're not all social workers. I wish they were, but they're not. I always give them a hard time. But we have 4 wonderful, wonderful, wonderful trained therapists. We have Gina Cortez. Gina has been with us, I think this is her 4th year, and she works primarily at the middle school and the high school. And then we have Eric Erickson, who's been here probably the longest of everybody here. We used to have Max many years ago, and he passed away. But Eric has been with us about 15 years in the school system. She worked with Sarah Forney quite a bit. And Eric works at the middle school and the high school level. And then Rosa Olmos Cortez, Rosa was a good friend of Max, and that's how we were able to get her into our system. She loves our system. We've had Rosa for a long time. She's fantastic. She is mainly our lower grades therapist. And then we do have a few kids that she sees at the middle school, and then we have a sprinkling at the high school. So Rosa's kind of spread out, but mainly her focus is TK5. And then Penny Kremen has been with us as well, and they're all licensed therapists. Penny's been with us probably a good 7 years, and she's mainly high school. They don't work for us full-time because they have other jobs. They do their private therapy in Napa or wherever they are, but we get them at least 2 days a week, so we're thrilled to have them. They've been doing a fantastic job, and each year I always ask, are you coming back? And I always worry that they're going to say no, and they don't. So it's kudos to all of us, this community, the school sites, because getting a therapist to stay for a long period of time, because they can go elsewhere and make a lot more money, is really hard to do, and we've been able to do that. And they love our kids, they love our community, they love our parents. Next group of folks, we have 2 of them in our audience, Karina Solis and Jose Hernandez. They're all going to come up at the end. They are Claro. You often hear about Clara and Claro. That's those 2 out there. They're the ones that are running our support groups at the middle school and the high school level for predominantly Hispanic youth, the girls as well as the boys. And they've been doing it for a while. They also have jumped in last year and the year before doing our SEL, our social emotional learning, during summer school. They have been the ones that have helped us in reference to middle school and the elementary school, kind of bringing in the SEL, because we felt like during COVID, not only academics, but we needed to deal with the physical as well as the social emotional. And that is Karina and Jose, who work for Up Valley Family Center. Up Valley Family Center, if anybody in the audience is hearing this, they need support always, because they are the #1 agency in this community. We rely on them for everything, and they're kind of the hub in this agency, in this community, and they have been for years, and they continue to do a great job. Who's out in the audience that I didn't mention, but she's going to come up a little bit later when we talk about the health clinic, but Indira Lopez. Indira is one of the directors at Up Valley Family Center, and she's the one helping us with the Health and Wellness Center. So Indira Lopez also for Up Valley Family Center. Who's not here tonight is Susanna Garcia. Sanchez, and she is kind of the coordinator of the family and student support services. She's not here, but again, you will see them on our campuses all the time. Next group of folks, we do have a few out here, and we have Selene Robledo, and Selene works for Aldea. And then we have Adriana Avalos, who work for Aldea, and they might look familiar because they went to this school system. And so I am definitely feeling a little old because I do remember them as students. But I'm thrilled. They're wonderful counselors. The kids, they are here mainly at the high school level, but they also deal with the middle school level, and they do a great job over and over and over again. And then we have Carla Andrade Maston. I'm not sure if I'm saying that last name correctly, but she's News. And News deals with healthy relationships, making sure that violence is dealt with. If there's an unhealthy relationship, she's the one that will handle and work with our students at the high school level or middle school level. And then Cecilia Sanchez has been here probably a good 15 years. She is migrant ed. I don't think you know that we have a migrant ed counselor. We historically run between 40 and 60 migrant ed students in our district. Cecilia is the one that does the counseling for all of them. And she works really close with everybody in all of our school systems. Any questions? But before we adjourn here, I would like them to come up, shake hands. We have a wonderful umbrella, which was so appropriate, and then we have a wonderful flower for them. So if I could have them come on up. So please come on up. You're going to start here and shake hands all the way around.
And Mary, some of trustees, we attended the elementary school last night, and we actually did get to learn so much about Cecilia. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you again. Hi again. Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for last night too. It was really great. Thank you.
We can do we want to do a photo? 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 Okay. Fancy umbrella. Is that yours? Steps. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Hold on one second, please. I get back to my place here. Trustees, any questions or comments on the presentation?
I just want to say, I think it's amazing because I was involved when the St. Helena family started in 2005, kind of in helping things get running, and to see what it's gone from then, from 2005 to now, is exactly what this small group of individuals who really got it started envisioned. And it's so nice to see a dream of a group of people in St. Helena become a reality. And then joining with Calistoga Family Center, who really had it all together, and the two now combined. It's just really inspiring to see what's happened, and some of the same people are there that were there then, and the dedication. It's amazing.
That's great. I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not lost on me in particular. I mean, to how fortunate we are to have all of you in our district, because that is a lot of staff, and we know that doesn't get to happen everywhere. So thank you for sticking with us and sticking with our kids. It's really, really important, and it's serving them well. So we really appreciate it. Anybody else, or?
Just thank you. Thank you very much. You're definitely making a difference. So
And Mary, thank you so much for getting this. Was definitely worthwhile on the agenda, and it's so nice to have faces with the names. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
thank you.
And at this point, also, you're welcome to stay because we love people in the audience, but we understand too that if people have lives and families to get on with, that please, it's okay to go ahead and go. But we thank you for being here. Okay, we're going to move on to, we're going on to item 8A, which is under communications. Board member report. Ms. Sean Mora, please. Yeah.
I really know how to clear a room. It's going to be really riveting. I am here to present on the dragons, the green dragons, just so you know, and you can pick up a nice green pen if you visit the office, if you need one. What I wanted to do is not focus on the academics so much, but kind of, it's actually timely following the group that just presented on all the support that we have for building the whole child. So what I really wanted to talk about is what they're doing school-wide, then within the classroom and individual students, and then also from a leadership perspective. So this, again, everyone here knows, but grades 3 through 5. So go to the next slide, please. This is basically, so this is not new, school-wide rally. It was there when my children were there, but just to share that it does still continue. So it's every day, ranging from 15 to 5 minutes, depending upon the content. They use it for a flag salute every day. They do a theme of the week, and I'll get into that more later. And then, so they'll start off with a theme on Monday, and then every day after that, go into more depth of what they're going to talk about and learn within their classrooms. And it's also used for recognition. So we'll go to the next slide. This is just, I think actually, Carolyn, maybe you spoke about this, and Dr. Emery when she was up talking about Valentine's Day, but this is just to see an example of the theme for the week. So that was a kindness challenge as a theme. And then every day there's different activities that are either done at the rally or back in the individual classroom, and or maybe I think with the student council. So next slide. So then this is I basically took directly from, this is what's shared with the teachers for them to follow up with the theme within their classroom. It's a purchase program called Second Step. Little side note that I had wrongly assumed that Dana Sabin, who works with the school, she works one-on-one with kids only. What she also does is take this curriculum and really modify it, enhance it, make it fit what she's seeing happening within our schools with the children. So I just wanted to share that little side note that I thought that was really valuable, that everyone's getting the benefit of, I see this happening at our school with our students, let me make a lesson out of it and customize it. So this theme, not the kindness challenge, but it was about problem solving for that week. All right, so let's go to the next slide, please. So I'm not going to read all the slides, but hey, do you know what an interpersonal problem is? So remember, this is grades 3 through 5. These are big terms. It's a disagreement between two or more people. We'll go to the next one. And really, I think what's useful is like, you know what, this happens all the time. It may happen on the playground. It may happen in the hallway. It's happening to everybody, hopefully not every day, but it's normal. It's not abnormal what you're experiencing and what you're feeling when you get frustrated when you're working with someone or having an argument. Next slide. And then it's not just about identifying what might be happening and that what they're feeling in normal. It's, hey, what do you think we could do for solutions? What are the outcomes of the solutions? Like if someone's mean to you, you could be mean back. That is a solution, but you probably don't want to do that because that's going to continue the cycle. So how do you explore outcomes that will get to a better positive state? So that's just an example so that everyone can see the types of lessons that they're getting outside of the overall theme in the rally and how it continues into the classroom. And lastly, I will go into the next slide. So this, I just wanted to give also a view. We heard about in, I think, the last board meeting, the mini student council that was formed this year. What I thought was really distinctive here to call out is that it's not just about having a student council so that they have that experience and may want to be an ASB at RLS or at the high school, but they're teaching really cool skills. So there's two goals that Dr. Emery has with this mini student council. One is to establish a connection between student and staff, and number two is leadership skills. One of the things that we heard about at our trustee conference was that connection is one of the leading indicators of kids being engaged in school. So the student council, not leadership, student council at the elementary school are being tasked with a skill of interviewing teachers to find out, as an example, what's one weird fact nobody knows about you? And then they're going to share that out at the rally. So then the kids, when they see that teacher, can say, I know that you're weird in this way. So what's that skill? What question do you want to ask? Taking the notes, conducting an interview, and then taking your notes, and how are you going to share that at a rally, right? And so then you're getting presentation skills, which I think is fantastic. So, and then the other piece of it is they're learning to lead school spirit. So the Kindness Challenge week, that was the student council really leading the challenge and conducting it within the classroom. So just like you guys are doing at RLS and at the high school, it's teaching that model of how do you go out and create a community and engagement within the kids. And that's all. Go Green Dragons.
That was great for your very first board report. Trustee Mora, I'm very proud of you. You did great. But that was nice to have that kind of knowledge, because that's not something that we would know if you don't, particularly the further you get away from the schools, right? So thank you for sharing that. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is the superintendent's report. Mr. Ruben Aurelio, please.
Well, good evening, President Pelosi, trustees, staff, and community. So in tonight's report, I just want to remind everyone about our mission, our vision, and the superintendent's priorities. I'm bringing back just a reminder of the Heard It Through the Grapevine, because we want to continue to promote that communication tool. And then, of course, Run Big. We'll talk about that. And then upcoming events. So just always, we talk about our why a lot and why we do this work. It's just really important to ground ourselves in our mission and our vision. We do have some powerful statements up on the board, and it's a great reminder of the work we're doing here. And following up our student trustee, and Sean Mora, my report's going to look a little light. They always do such good things. But a few presentations back, I did share my priorities as a superintendent, and I just want to highlight the first one. Over the past couple weeks, I was able to visit all fifth grade classrooms during math instruction, and our our math intervention teacher. And it was just fantastic to walk in and see our students working on volume and all the different levels that they were working at it, the approaches that they were taking from classroom to classroom. But for me personally, what I really enjoyed was the fact that I went to 4 different classrooms and intervention, and they were all working on the same concept, which is great to see that uniformity across our schools and our cross grade levels. I also had the pleasure of visiting Mr. Madison Butt's classroom at the high school, his pre-integrated classroom, which that class predominantly includes English learner students, newcomers as well, and that they're working on some skill sets to get them ready for integrated 1 math. I was just really impressed with how well he engaged the students. He made it fun. He built in breaks, which I guess at one point during the year, they asked a lot of just random questions, and he has them on cards, and every once in a while he pulls one out. I think the question was, what's his favorite horror movie? But it broke up the lesson, it kept students engaged, and then they were able to jump back into the real world problems they were trying to solve. So I was very impressed with that, just his connection with the students and how they were moving along. Next slide. Actually, next slide. Perfect. So last time we were here, we showcase the fact that we have a new website feature. And really the intent of this is for our community, not just our school community, but the greater St. Helena community, to ask us pretty much any question. We know how easy it is to jump on social media, put something out there, and then it starts to grow and no one's asked us the actual question of, is this true? Or can you tell us what's happening? So people are starting to use it, which was great. Perfect example was the lockdown we had last month. Someone posted. We were able to link on there the information we had around the lockdown. People have asked about the primary school playground, for example, and we were able to provide information. And so coming directly to the source, our school district, for information. It is anonymous. You don't have to give us your name. You can just pose a question. Just a reminder, we can't answer some types of questions like personnel-based questions. Really, this is more generalized. But we want to really encourage the community to use this forum. Run Big. That is going to happen March 31st. Can you tell how excited I am about Run Big? I know we have Anna Chateau in the audience, who is my co-conspirator right now on Run Big. So obviously, Run Big is new to me. I know it has not occurred for a few years because of the pandemic. We are going to bring it back. It won't be as big, so maybe it's run kind of big this year, but we are going to do it March 31st, which is the Friday before spring break. So it's a great sort of time to set our students off and running for the break. We have, if you can go to the next slide, just a few logistics to share with you. And this is subject to change, so please note that we're still working through the details, but we are going to begin the run at the high school. And the path essentially is from the high school to the primary school, and that's all our students running together. They will collect our first and second graders, so not the shortest legs, just kind of short legs. And they will run from the primary school, and the primary students will break off to elementary school. Elementary students will join the high school students, continuing to RLS, where they will collect the RLS students, and then we will all reconvene at the elementary school. And that's where we will end and culminate. We are partnering with the city. We're partnering with the police. We are working to partner with Parks and Recs as well to provide some activities at the end of the event. Councilmember Chateau has been tremendous in supporting this work. So we are going to do it. And it'll be what it's going to be. It's going to be fantastic and great. And we hope that you run with us.
It's going to be big fun.
Or jog or walk. Oh, lastly, we do need volunteers, lots and lots of volunteers. So we need volunteers at intersections, making sure we have good traffic flow and our kids can run and not have to worry about any traffic. Lastly, as y'all heard, Oklahoma starts tomorrow. I will be viewing it next week, so we'll get through the first week, to work out all the kinks, and I'll get to see it. We have a conference coming up, which is the CABE, or California Association of Bilingual Educators, where we do send some district staff. We also fantastically send our DLAC representatives for that conference. So that's fantastic. That's at the end of the month. We mentioned Run Big, and then, of course, there is a break. Just something to note, the Monday after spring break technically is a recovery day. We haven't released it yet, but if it does get released, that'll be a non-student day. Okay. And that's the report.
Thank you. Question. I had one question right off the top of my head. Where do volunteers sign up for Give Big for Run Big? Excuse me. Through the website or email you?
I will send out.
Wait, could you come up to the microphone? Sorry, but we want to get that word out.
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Anna Chateau. I'm on the Give Big committee, and I'm helping with Run Big. So we will be reaching out to volunteers through the parent-teacher groups.
Okay.
So I will create a document where parents can easily sign up for their spots, and we'll be organizing that information and getting it out to all the parent group heads, and then also all of the parent group reps is how it goes through. And so it's for each class for the younger grades all the way through the elementary school, and also RLS has a parent that's responsible for each year, and they send out email communications to the teacher that's assigned to that grade as well as all the caregivers and parents.
Okay.
So that is how we will contact people.
Okay.
If that doesn't work, we'll start texting madly to anybody we know to sign up with that same link.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Trustees, any other questions for clarifications needed? No? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to this item C, Superintendent Subcommittee Reports. Also, Mr. Aurelio, please.
Good evening again. So for this report, we actually only have one committee to report out this evening. That was the Student Equity and Belonging. And both Trustee Mora and Trustee Kerr were there. As always, I've linked the QR code will take you to the slide deck for that meeting. And so you can see the notes and see all that information, and that's available to anyone who wants to check that. So I will turn it over to who's going to speak. Is it Mora or Kerr? Rochambeau? Just
Maybe we both will, 'cause you never know. So there were two different things. The first half, we really spent talking about what is the district doing well in terms of wellness. Sorry, that was not intended, but they were given examples of new things that have started this year. I think the most exciting thing for students is the water filters at the school sites. Sad, but very distinctive and exciting. What stood out to me, what I loved, is that the Angela Baxter, I'm forgetting her title, but head of food services, what they did is provided samples of new food items to go to the students, and the students basically got to pick what they liked the best, and those are the things that were added to menus, which I just think is great, and hopefully will lead to less complaints about some of the food. But then we also had some feedback on what could our schools do a little bit better about providing healthier snack options, things like that. And then we moved into some of the dialogue around the grades at the high school, what they look like, what is a meaningful conversation around grades at the high school, and snapshotting data at a certain time. And I think what was most interesting, if you look at the slides that are in the deck, is almost everyone said we didn't have enough time to really talk about it. It was really fascinating. I wish we could talk about it more. So that's at a subcommittee level, which at that meeting was actually predominantly teachers, which I found interesting, from the high school. Just happened to be that way, I think, that day. But it was just fascinating. The comment was, this was too short for us to dig into anything. It's a great discussion. When can we do it? And what happens with it? So I left that meeting pretty excited about that everyone is excited to be there and engaged and wanting more, not sitting around at a meeting going, this is great, I'm glad I'm here. So I found the engagement to be distinctive at this meeting.
And I agree, absolutely agree. It was a really good meeting. It was well attended. Students were there as well, so that's always nice. And I just wanted to give the shout out to talking about the wellness fair, and this was that there was a wellness fair in February at RLS, and there's one being planned at the high school very soon. And one of the conversations about the wellness fair is that maybe it should occur more than once a year. Maybe we should do a couple a year, just to keep everyone engaged. And it seems that the students really enjoy the wellness fair at both of the sites. So is there anything else that yeah. So it was a great meeting. It was a really good meeting.
And like I said, the notes, including the feedback for the wellness report, is linked to that QR code.
Thank you for providing that. That's great.
And then the last slide is just a reminder of our upcoming meetings, committee meetings. The next one, business operations, is in April, and we have an LCAP steering committee at the end of this month, the 28th. And yeah, there you go.
Okay.
What's the
April 19th?
April 19th is also the spelling bee.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Moving on. Item 8D is the St. Helena Teachers Association report to the board. Mr. Farrell?
Good evening. My report tonight is full of things you may have already mentioned, but I think one of the key highlights of this time of year for teachers is our involvement in different committees and different planning for next year, especially around hiring. We have obviously a lot of hiring going on, and one of the things we really appreciate and try to take advantage of is our access to our interview teams, and we are having a lot of participation on those teams, and we really appreciate that continuing. I also want to thank Mr. Heller for hosting some feedback meetings around the RLS principle and a form, right, for the director of Ed Services position. I think that's important feedback for the teachers to be able to participate in. I heard, and I wasn't there, that we had many teachers present at the LCAP meeting, which I think is very important as well. So our teachers are active, they're out there, they're answering questions, and I think this is a busy time outside of the classroom as well as a crunch time within the classroom. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Okay, item E is no report for this month, and then as usual, items F through I are our principal reports for us, which are always fantastic. Thank you so much for highlighting volunteers and the other activities going on in your campuses. Okay, item 9A is the consent agenda. Excuse me. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Any written public comments? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item or the need to pull anything from the consent agenda? Try and get my mouth to work here a little bit better. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make. Go ahead, please.
Battle of the Jean Maries over here, the genies. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, item 10A, is the request for the adoption of Resolution 22-39, Week of the Volunteer. Mr. Aurelio, first, please.
Yes, so the board is being asked to adopt Resolution 22-39, which is recognizing April 17th through April 21st, 2023 as the Week of the Volunteer. And I believe we're asking Trustee Simon to read the resolution.
Okay. St. Helena Unified School District, Resolution 22-39, School Volunteer Appreciation Week 2023. Whereas School Volunteer Week offers the opportunity to recognize and to thank school volunteers who contribute unselfishly to the success of the St. Helena Unified School District students, teaching and support staff, and the goals of public education. And whereas parental and community involvement is a significant factor in the quality of our schools and the success of our students. And whereas we appreciate the dedicated volunteers who give their time and talent to assist professional educators and support staff. And whereas volunteers reflect the highest values of our society and become role models for students by demonstrating an interest in education. And whereas volunteers are called upon to assist teachers and staff with the day-to-day activities involved in providing a quality education for our students and are an important part of a team that strives to ensure that each and every one of our students succeeds. And whereas it is fitting to support the goals of this observance, as when parents, schools, and communities work together in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world, therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the St. Helena Unified School District recognize the week of April 17th, 2023 through April 21st, 2023 as School Volunteer Week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
No questions.
I'm just going to add that, of course, this resolution is extremely important. And as we, saw through our principal reports tonight, we have a volunteer for Run Big in the audience. We know that those kind of things don't happen without volunteers. So I think I can, candidly say that everybody sitting right here has done their fair share of volunteering as well. So we know how important it is. So thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-39 as presented?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 10B, is the review of the mobile device policy and current practices. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Well, good evening again. So tonight we are presenting just an update and where we are with our current policies and our current practices when it comes to mobile device use on our campuses. Okay, so let me go back and look. So this short presentation will acknowledge, first and foremost, that our current policy does meet the requirements by law. It does meet all Ed Code requirements. And so just to be clear that it's not a need to quickly adjust, but we are meeting those needs. So I'm going to go into the next phase just to speak to which board policy we do have. And that is Board Policy 5131, which is under student conduct. In 2019, that was revised and adopted, and there was this line item there about what can be prohibited as far as conduct, using that number 9 there, and that's right from the policy, which is use of cell phone, smartwatch, pager, or other mobile communication device during instructional time or in an unauthorized manner is a violation of the district policy, which is speaking specifically about the conduct policy. Okay. I want to bring your attention to Assembly Bill 272, and just to note why it's here, that one specifically acknowledges that there are certain cases where you can't restrict the use of a phone for a student. Obviously, in case of emergency, there might be medical reasons why a student needs to have their cell phone. As far as applications, maybe it helps them check for diabetes. There's different reasons, and that would have to be specifically approved via, say, an IEP or a 504, where that would be needed. So there is some protection around use of a phone there. So specifically going into each of our school sites, the first one we'll talk about here is the St. Helena High School policy. So there's 2 excerpts here taken right from their student handbook. And you can see one, we're not responsible for lost or stolen phones. If that gets taken, it's not our responsibility. I find it fascinating that Prada purses is on there. I didn't know we had that many Prada purses as an issue, but it's there. It's kind of funny. Like, someone sneak that in there? No, that's there. But also, is that you, Mr. Cinto? Is that? It's there to be funny. Perfect. Well, it made me chuckle for sure. And then, of course, for non-instructional electronic devices, which include cell phones, they need to be turned off and stored safely during class time. So that's the rule, right? The next slide, if you see, continuing on the policy. So students turn off and store safely before entering classrooms. I wanted to highlight there in pink, which is there is an exception. And then some teachers can utilize cell phones with students during instruction for specific tools. And I've seen that. I've walked through classrooms where their teachers are using cell phones with certain applications. Sometimes they're quizzing students and they're using their phones for that. And so that is a approved use of cell phones during class time. At the high school, if students are breaking the policy or the rule, teachers can confiscate the phones. and then typically they're returned at the end of class period. Continued infractions, though, would trigger our conduct policy, 5131, for more action. One thing to note at the high school, we do not confiscate phones for before school, after school, passing periods, or say at the quad at lunch. And then similar to the AB Assembly Bill, we don't obviously confiscate phones that are for medically fragile students. One thing I want to note is that from what I can tell, there hasn't been any serious disciplinary use of that policy, at least not in the recent time as far as discipline action connected to use of phone. I want to separate that from the investigations we sometimes do when there's cyberbullying, for example, and you have to investigate social media and things like that. Of course, that would require sometimes the phones and devices. Moving on to the RLS policy and practice. Very similarly, cell phones are to be completely turned off, out of sight, once they're in school. Of course, AB 272, some students have an exception. If the phones ring, are used during instruction, they're taken to the office, and then there's an arrangement made for the parents to pick up the phone. It was really important the policy and practice is reviewed with all incoming 6th grade students and with any new student in 7th or 8th grade. Part of that is, I believe, is in back to school night as well. And then it's reviewed in the family groups. And one thing to add about RLS, they haven't had any issues with this policy being enforced. It's been a non-issue, from what I can tell. At the elementary and the primary school, I added the primary school, but this is mostly focused on elementary. There's not a lot of primary students where this becomes an issue, I hope. I don't believe there is. But watches are? Ooh. Oh, okay. That's a primary school thing then. So similarly, right, out of sight, put away. They're not to be used during instructional time or class time. And then, of course, parents are contacted if they have to confiscate the phones or devices. So the last one here is really opening it up to the board for discussion. I am essentially asking the trustees this evening for direction. And the direction to me looks one of two ways. It could be, we're good, our policies meet the standards, they meet the requirements of the education code, and we can leave it as is. Or you can recommend that I go back and look at a specific policy, which we currently don't have, that's just about cell phone use in schools. And there are examples of those in other school districts that sort of lay out exactly, and it could be by grade span. This grade to this grade, or this school to this school, it's no use at all, and so on and so forth. And I will turn it over to the board.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone who is present who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item?
Hello again, Brandon Farrell, SHTA president. I'd just like to give a little bit of a teacher perspective on this particular item. Both, I was in the classroom in the academic world for 13 years and 7 previously in another state, and then now I'm in an activity class. But most importantly, I represent all the teachers, and our teachers have a really good grasp on our current policies. We feel like it works. I know that because I've never been in a meeting where I've been with an administrator talking about a teacher's cell phone policy being inappropriate or anything like that, or a student taking advantage of a teacher and having problems in that such a manner. I also, from a parent perspective, have 3 kids in our RLS in high school, and know that there are different challenges, and that's why it's appropriate to have the RLS policy be different than the high school policy. And I think part of that is because we as parents, have different challenges teaching our kids how to use those cell phones, but those, aren't necessarily to infuse into school policy. I think those are separated parent issues sometimes. I know that from other states and from other school districts I've been in, I keep remembering all the time, especially when my parents were here, which they just left yesterday, about how wonderful our school is and how things seem to work. Our kids are very respectful. They work with the teachers. They understand the responsibility that the cell phone can have, both negatively and positively. And I believe our teachers are handling all of these, the policies that we have in tremendous respect for everybody. And I think they work. So that's my personal opinion about, and as I represent all of the teachers and what I hear from teaching staff, my site reps, and things like that. Nobody's ever brought to me that we need to change a policy. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Anna Shuto, and I am a parent of 2 younger kids, RLS and the elementary. I would like to encourage you to look at the cell phone use, especially the policy, especially at the high school. I am concerned. I've been in the classroom just a couple times, so I have not the same experience as the teachers. I trust our teachers. I just did see more use than what's listed up there. I think that there is a mismatch just from what I've heard and what I've seen with my own eyes. Nothing egregious. This is just, I know how lucky we are. So hearing that comment, I feel poorly even raising this, but I'm also very concerned about the mental health. I'm concerned about the increase in reporting, self-reporting from students with suicidal self-harm. This has nothing to do with our amazing environment and all of the resources that we pour in, that we heard earlier. We do so much with mental health and well-being, and yet the kids are still reporting the loneliness and the mental health challenges that were worse with the pandemic. The research is clear that social media and technology does have a negative adverse impact. It is addictive, it is distracting, and I would just like us to be on the forefront, more proactive, looking at a way to make it so that there are some breaks for academic learning to make the best possible positive experience. I would never want to do anything that's not with teachers. I also would think it would be teachers and staff and students all weighing in on it. I'm only one opinion. I have lots of other conversations with parents. I know there's more concern with than me. They're not able to show up. Another was going to at the last minute. A kid had an emergency. Others at the younger years are, the opinion I hear often both in council and also here is it takes too much time to come to public meetings in the evenings when we're so busy. They're frustrated by the process and what it takes to make change. I don't have any answers for that. I just am here tonight to offer my opinion, which is that I would love for us to do more. And just thank you for everything that everybody's doing to concentrate on our wellness of our whole children. I know how lucky we are. Thank you.
Thank you. There were any online comments?
There was one written public comment
Yes.
that was posted to the agenda prior to the meeting.
Yes, trustees, did everybody get a chance to see that? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is not an action item tonight. This is a discussion item. So at this point, I'll open it up for discussion, comments, questions, and see what you're thinking.
I appreciate Mr. Farrell painting a picture a bit of the use of the cell phone at the high school and how teachers see it as a useful tool. I'd like a little more bit of that picture, and I'm curious as to, are the tools on the cell phone, and I don't know if Mr. Cinto can speak to this or Mr. Farrell can, but are the tools on the cell phone, are they not accessible by the Chromebooks, the school-issued Chromebooks in the class?
Do you want to?
Or, no?
I don't know if we have the answer to that. Yeah, I think it probably varies by the applications they're using.
Which
Oh, well.
technical difficulties?
No.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a tech question.
Oh, great, okay.
We have our director of technology in the room.
Of course.
Why don't
Sorry,
we ask our
but
director of
You,
technology?
you don't come out of there often, so
I
you
know.
had me nervous.
The first thing, and just to say, because I know it's a pet peeve of one of my techs, mine, Chromebooks are at the middle school, elementary school, and primary school. We use Windows laptops at the high school. I can't imagine that tools they use on their cell phone wouldn't be available to be deployed on the Windows laptops. It just depends what they are, but if it's something that we need to push out, something we can absolutely push out. So.
Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you.
We let Derek out of the room.
That's great. And my other question, what happens when a student doesn't own a cell phone? How can they participate in the curriculum if it requires a cell phone or they want them to use a cell phone? For example, I was able to participate in the leadership. What was it called, Carol? I want to get it right, Carolyn. When we were in here at the leadership, it was fourth period, and we all met.
Was that the Congress?
The Congress, thank you. Yes, with the QR code, and the students could pull out their cell phones to participate in the quiz.
Mr. Heller, are you aware of the name of that application? I think it's Slides, not Go.
Was Slido?
Slido.
A Slido, thank you.
I've used that, right, in meetings, the Slido tool.
So that was like a beginning exercise of the class. So how do students who don't have a cell phone or only have a watch or have nothing, how do they participate? How do all the kids still get to participate is, I guess, what I'm asking.
Well, I think that becomes an equity-based question, right? So you have to make sure if we're going to use a tool that it's accessible to all students. I know when I've presented using Slido and their phone doesn't work, you can actually lend someone your phone to take the picture and do it. So there's ways to work around it, but the question then becomes: do all our students who are being asked to use a tool in class, do they have access? And that would be the question.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Anyone else?
I kind of am along the same lines with Laura. It seems if they have a laptop and it has capabilities, it doesn't seem fair that somebody has an iPhone 14, whatever the newest is, and somebody maybe has an Android. It seems like the curriculum should be with what we can provide Windows. That's kind of my thought. Not to differ, but I know, not to rat out on anyone, but I can remember getting text in the middle of the day when I had someone in high school like, what are we having for dinner tonight? And I'm like, I don't think that you're actually in class using your phone to research something when you're, texting. So I'm not 100% sure that they only bring them out for academic purposes. And I think it might be good to have a policy so everything's uniform for all the students.
Jeannie or Sean, any?
I'd like to shed some light
Yes,
on this
absolutely.
topic, considering I am the voice for the students. At the high school, I think it is very clear to all of the students that you must have a level of discipline. As somebody who's had the policy from RLS as not having your phone at all from the transition to high school, it's made me better as a person to know when to study and when to focus, and also when it's my free time. I understand the concerns of the parents with the harmful effects of social media, and as somebody who grows up in this age, I definitely understand that and see that within my peers. But I also understand the use of the cell phone within the classroom. I understand that it's an equity issue, but our teachers actually utilize it because most students, and I will not generalize that all students have a cell phone, but most do, and most have it nearby. Sometimes it's faster to get out your phone and take a picture of the notes on the wall instead of getting your computer and trying to upload it to Schoology or some of our other devices. I think it's a sore misconception that cell phones are a weapon towards teens. There's a lot of things that we do in leadership like Slido and Photo Circle, which allows us to be accountable for each other. We also have an alert system which reminds us of dress-up days, when to come back to class, lots of different ways that we organize each other. I think I mirror Mr. Farrell's sentiments that the teachers understand the policy, but as well the students understand the policy. I respect my teachers, I respect their time, and I respect their effort towards our academics, and I know that when I walk into a classroom, I'm there to learn, and I also see that within my peers. I do know that we are not always fully academic when we are on our phones, but usually that's the 2 minutes before the bell rings. So there's kind of an understanding at the high school that you are respectful towards your teacher, and with that respect comes the responsibility of using your device when it is appropriate.
So let me ask you, in your opinion, do you feel like it's, as far as the following protocols and policy by staff, that's pretty consistent from teacher to teacher? Okay, great.
I mean, it varies, which, some teachers are very strict about their cell phone policy and some make it more flexible. But at the beginning of every year, each teacher makes it very clear what their policy is. We use cell phone caddies. Some people just say put it away, and some
Right.
let us utilize it as a tool. So it really just depends teacher to
Okay.
teacher, but it is very clear to each
Okay.
student.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I guess when I was an avid teacher at the high school, I guess it was 5 years ago now. I was with 4, maybe 5 different teachers. They all were a little different, and when someone was using their cell phone and shouldn't have been, there was a conversation and the phones went away, or if there were a lot of them, the phones went in the caddy. I hesitate, and again, it's just sharing, I don't know that I have an opinion, but I hesitate to solve a problem that the teachers are saying isn't a problem. It's kind of like, yes, a phone can do a lot of bad things, but it's being used for good reasons, maybe in the classroom, in the appropriate context. It's like having a knife at the dinner table. You can use it appropriately to cut your food, or someone could use it as a weapon. So I'm just struggling with do we do something about it because social media is also on a phone? I don't know. Yes, I get text, and I also am guilty of texting my children, and they respond. So I know that, and I say, you should be responding, well, stop texting me. So I think, especially at the high school, when I think about student development and growth, I feel like the high school is the time when you need to start figuring out adulting. And there's some personal accountability that needs to come into play. And if you are bad and on your phone, it should be taken away and you lose it. So I'm okay with some natural consequences at that age, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I don't have an opinion on this either. Right now, yes, social media can be very negative. It's something that is, it affects everyone, I think, social media, but I also feel that it is a learning tool for our students as far as what should and should not be posted. And I think that our students are smart enough, intelligent enough to make right decisions. I guess my thought about if we were to change, and I agree with Trustee Moore in the sense is if our teachers feel that everything is okay with a policy and they feel comfortable with it, I don't think that we should tinker it in a big way. I mean, because I think my biggest fear would be if we start tinkering with it and we start disallowing it at certain times during the day or something, then they're going to have to be the enforcer, and they're in a different spot than they are now, where they're like, you can't have it in the class. I'm okay with them saying you can't have this in the class, but I don't think that they should have to be enforced. They shouldn't be enforcing the students saying you can't have this during lunch, and looking at, Right. I mean, so that's why I really don't want to see the policies go to the extent where it's a no cell phone policy at all during school days. Right. I don't think it's enforceable. And I think that they would be spending too much time doing that. And it's not an enjoyable thing to do. So that's just my thoughts right now.
Yeah, I think a no cell phone policy we would see walk out. I mean, honestly, I think we've passed that threshold of being able to say something like that. And very valid points everybody has made up here. I think I'm looking at it from a governance standpoint because it's not the day-to-day operation for us to be involved in on that. If we were going to do anything, it would be at a policy level. And, if we're following what we're required to by law, I'm comfortable living in that arena and saying we're doing what we're supposed to do. And honestly, I agree that I don't want to put anything more on a teacher's plate than is already there in the course of a day. And I would just ask that there's consistency across all. That's what I think our expectation as a board should be, this is the policy. These are your protocols at your school. And, it's the trickle down. It's not for us to, it's for the principals to make sure their teachers are following protocol. And then there are punishments for when, I feel overwhelmed by the concept of trying to take on social media access as 5 individuals sitting here. I just don't know how we would win that fight. And I just don't. I haven't seen examples of other cell phone policies that have resonated with me to say, that's a good idea. I'm of the belief that there is student responsibility, and if there is consistency, if I know one teacher is requiring, to put all the phones in a cubby when you walk in, maybe that's what needs to be done for everybody, right? If that's the policy, and then to make sure it's being done. But I don't know if that's our job to dictate that policy. Right. Ours is a little bit higher. Yes. But if that's kind of where I'm landing right now. I don't see where we change policy to say, grades 9 through 12 can't be on social media during the hours of school, because that's not going to be policeable.
Right. It'd be difficult to enforce.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not to say that I don't hear the parent concerns. It's not, that is not to say that at all. We all know, to Jeannie's point, that it affects everybody. I just don't, unless we are told otherwise and we are given, data that says there's been X amount of infringements, and, they've had to take the cell phones away from high school students, 80 times in the month of, then that's something we might have to look at. But that's not data that's coming our way to change policy.
Correct.
So does that make sense, what I'm saying?
It does. Can I add another comment? Thank you. We were talking a lot about social media, and it's difficult to police social media. And I agree. I think there are a lot of impossibilities with that. And is that our responsibility? However, switching away from social media, I kind of did a deep dive into research and thought about this. And what I did learn, and I think this should be an additional conversation with the teachers, because they are with the students who are really seeing if this is happening, but it is well known that when a child has a device in a classroom, it's going to affect memory concentration, and it's going to affect critical thinking and performance. They're facts. They're out there. I can give you the research. One study was done at Rutgers University. They spent a lot of time on that research. They also found that they had classes with peers without the cell phones in the class, and they performed a half a grade higher on lessons and exams. So what I'm curious about is, I look at our math scores, and I look at from the Healthy Kids Survey, our issues with loneliness, and I'm curious if the cell phones are contributing to that. We don't have an answer, but that would be more information I would like from the teachers and from Mr. Cinto as we continue to discuss this and think about the cell phone policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn, would you see that as something that could be discussed in a conversation in a leadership class or a Congress?
I was just about to say that would be a great leadership or student Congress conversation. I think that the students would feel disgruntled if the policy were changed, personally, as my overview. And I also think if we are entrusted to drive vehicles at such a young age that we should be entrusted to use our phones responsibly. We're becoming adults. So
I'd like to know why they're disgruntled. Like, I'd like to know, like, if you could, in your research, if you could find out why that tool is so important to them in their classroom. I'd like to know more. If it's not too much to ask.
No, I would love to do some digging, because I also respect the adult concern, and I also understand that virtually nobody in this room has grown up with technology except for me, at least in the cell phone.
We're not that old, Carolyn. Come on now. Define technology.
Give us a minute to rebound from that.
So I understand my own personal bias and attachment to this device. I just think that the students don't always feel heard in that we're not always on our phones. We're not always texting our friends. And I mean, I hear it from my parents all the time, get off your phone, but they're also on their phones. And it really is a tool, and it has forced me to grow up and not just focus on my phone and set aside distractions and really find a time to zone in and to work on my personal academic performance. And I have talked to my peers about it, and there's wonderful apps that the school pays for, like Quizlet, that we can use on our computers, but also on our phones when we go home. It's just really helpful for communication. And when we're in the lockdown, like, I understand that the teachers can't take it away in that specific time, but having a device and knowing that you can get into contact with your loved ones, even if it is just perceived danger, it's very vital for us to feel safe. And it's almost like our teddy bear, like, okay, my phone's in my pocket, I'm good, I'm safe, it's always with me. So I think that's there's a sense of safety with it. I understand that there has to be discussion of its place in our school day. But no, I'd love to talk to my peers more about their thoughts on this, and maybe a survey so we can get some numbers.
Thank you, Carolyn. I actually just want to clarify. Are we talking about just phones in the classroom, correct? During instructional time? Mm-hmm. Okay. Because it sounds like the policy says you're not supposed to use them. So, but it's happening when the teachers allow. So
Yeah, well, they can't be, I mean, like, for example, I mean, as the policy is, they're not going to be confiscated before school, after school, at lunch. We know they're being checked as they walk from classroom to classroom. I mean, I'm speaking at a high school level, and if I'm incorrect,
And it's high school, yeah. That's
high school.
We're
yeah,
really just talking about high
we
school
are,
at this point.
exactly. But yeah, so to your point, I think it's looking for the policy in the classroom, right? Is that what it sounds like that's what you're.
It is, and actually, Carolyn just brought up safety. So I have another question about when we're on lockdown in a classroom and children are instructed to be quiet and hiding. How do teachers maintain students from their phones dinging with parents calling or the phones lighting up that will alert the predators to them? That's also a real big concern of mine, as I have been in a lockdown as a teacher and having to manage a bunch of these little Christmas lights of phones going off in the room and trying to hide from someone at the same time. So I appreciate that we're talking about policy, because I think we also we've had 2 lockdowns this year, so we need to talk about how our teachers trained, or how do they know what to do, because I'd like to know more about that in a lockdown situation with phones going off when they're supposed to be hiding.
Okay. And maybe is that something that you could provide and follow up information? Either whether it's a Friday memo, or do you want it to come back as an agenda item? What do you feel?
I would like it to be presented at a board for all of our community members to understand. So perhaps parents can refrain from calling their high school students in a lockdown situation,
So part
just
of
so
a
they're
general
educated.
lockdown procedural
Yeah.
update, which will include cell phones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I think there's.
Because would that be included in our safety plan, our overall safety plan that we have?
It could be in there, but I think since we've had 2 lockdowns this year, it might be a good idea to just bring an update to the board as a way to just communicate to our community, so the community knows exactly what we do and what we expect of our families. We know it's really hard, because your reaction as a parent is come to the school, call the police, do all these things, we know that is actually counter to what we really want. Because if dispatch is blowing up that whole time, that's actually challenging for the police.
Yeah.
So we can just do a reminder as an update.
You know, and I want to remind us that we're in a, as trustees, we're in a really fortunate position where we can legislate. As we know, we can legislate. So we, as you might know, there's the Senate bill. What is it, 287? And it was introduced by a senator from Berkeley. And so you might want to check it out. It's basically where it's kind of what we're talking about, but it's about specifically social media driven, and how social media affects our children, their well-being, their health, and if we're able to participate in conversation, not just us, but other board members saying, you know, that social media needs to improve the way that they operate. That's where we can help with the whole social media part of this.
I think Chris Heller wants to jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing on this. Representing the human resources side and the curriculum instruction part of it. You've heard earlier from the teachers saying that this situation is manageable amongst the teachers, and there's varying degrees of acceptance and responsibility that's placed on the students. One of the things that I want us to think about is, from a human resources angle, is what I call the unenforceable mandate. And so if we have a policy, if we have a rule, then what happens when a student does use it, and a teacher doesn't enforce it? And does that create more unintended consequences of district disciplining teachers for this, or just those types of things that are a little more higher level than the classroom instruction and using the phone? Is what happens when it doesn't, and then what do we do about it? And I want to present that as just a piece for us to think about.
Absolutely, and that's a very valuable piece to consider as well. Okay, so I think at this point, the direction was to be able to provide some information about cell phone use within safety, lockdown. And it's not a directive to you, but I
can work with Carolyn.
Yeah, but
on
if time permits between now and the remainder of the year, to have that be a student, if Miss Brazil is open to it with Mr. Cinto's approval as well, maybe that is something, and you're the high school representative, right? So maybe that's something that you can sit in on, and maybe it becomes something part of your board report as well, just to see. Because I think this is, I'm still kind of sensing it's just a little bit of unknown territory for us as well, that we're not. So we'll continue to do our deep dive, and if there's more, but more questions you need answered, by all means, ask. And if we need to revisit this again by the end of the year, we can talk about it again. That's not like we can't. We can put it on an agenda and see how the year finished out. But with cell phones, but I think as well, it is, I'm with Sean when she said, I'm hesitant to regulate something that teachers are saying is not really a problem, because we're not in that position to know if it's a problem or not, right? We're just, that's what we're hearing. But let's just see, and then let's hear from more student voice, because they're the people we're talking about with their cell phones. So I think that would be a great thing, and if you would be able to attend that, Laura, I think that's a win-win if it gets to happen. So thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody feeling okay? Any last comments?
I think in interviewing students, we should really try and get a really good cross-section as well.
Right. Yeah, not just a leadership class kind of thing, but more of a student voice kind of. Right. Okay. We've got, let's see, we're moving on is everybody okay? Does anybody need we need a break for anything, or should we carry on? Okay. All right. Then we're going to move on to item 11A, the St. Helena High School Health and Wellness Center update. Thank you, Miss Mary Allen and crew.
Well, I'm going to start off, but clearly this is a group effort, and I want to certainly make sure that we give time to Roxana, who's part of leading this charge, as well as Indira Lopez from Up Valley Family Center, part of leading this charge. We're going to just start with giving the board a mid-year report. This has been something that I have felt personally has been something I've been gearing towards for the past couple of years to make sure that we can kind of get a health and wellness center here in St. Helena. And the reason being is we're a rural community and students are here for 6.5, 7, 8 hours of a day. We want to provide a one-stop shop for students here at the high school level. And it's really hard if they have to do some sort of doctor's appointment, then automatically they have to take a day to go down to Napa for that doctor's appointment. Or if we have a mental health issue, then we need to have possibly having them go to Napa as well, or have to pull in somebody up here to St. Helena. So we just felt like this is the place to have. If there's any place possible to have it where we can set this up, it's St. Helena. And we have such great community partners, and Roxana's going to get into that, and as well as Indira. So I'm going to just start off here. So mid-year report. We've come a long way in only a few months. Why a health and wellness center at the high school? It's because it's something that it's the one-stop shop. We do believe that behavioral health, as well as physical health, as well as oral health, is really appropriate at the high school level. It should be at all levels, but we're really focusing on the high school level because that's where we're seeing the majority of students stating that they would like some additional support. And it's not just going to be a behavioral health, mental health, it's going to be our physical health as well. And the state is gearing towards this. They're starting to really understand, California as well as the nationwide, that mental health and behavioral health resources in the school system is the place to have it. They are really trying to push it here instead of pushing it out of the districts. So you'll be hearing more and more in California about this. They actually have a California School-Based Health Alliance and an initiative out of CDE to start trying to bring some more health clinics and wellness clinics into school systems. Part of our LCAP goal, we've had this, we put this in our LCAP, and it's goal number 4, as we were talking about the SEL, as well as social, emotional, and behavioral health. As part of our action is to bring in a health and wellness center. This will continue in the LCAP for next year and for the years after. We really want to get this up and running. What is a health and wellness center? As you can read through this, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I just want you to know it's a way for us to provide services for students in an integrated system and case management system. So we can technically have a kid come in. We have a kid at a high school, let's say that something's going on. We can have them go see Roxana or somebody else that Roxana case manages with immediately to receive support and therapy. We also have the capability of working with our partners such as St. Helena Hospital or Clinical Lay, that they can immediately, if they're having an issue that might be physical related, they can go in without feeling like their parents have to take them somewhere. They actually have a place to go and talk to somebody who will do a universal screening and some preventative health for that student. So it's such a needed service, and it happens more at the high school level. And I can tell you right now, once this actually gets going, the kids will be utilizing this over and over and over again. We are not expecting them to just leave class and just go to the health and wellness clinic. That's not the point of it. The point is there'll be designated times that they can show up in a drop-in basis or an appointment basis. But it is something that we want to make sure it's integrated. Everything is integrated because students aren't just one dimension, they're multidimensional. And so we want to make sure that everything we're doing is integrated with the behavioral health, with the physical health, and the academic health here in the school system. And I'm going to turn it over to Roxana, who can explain a little bit of how far we've come and where we're going.
Lower this down. Thank you. So just going off what Mary was saying about why it's important, this visual gives you a little idea of what we're talking about. It's that a health and wellness center really does look at all these different layers of supporting a student, not only supporting the student directly by providing the social emotional learning, but it also supports the classroom environment in regards to the social emotional learning that happens in the classroom and also the classroom climate. And then it pushes on to the school-wide culture and practices and policies that we have around engagement, inclusion, diversity, and so on and so forth. And it includes the family and caregivers. A lot of the services that we do provide around mental health, behavioral health, and medical, it's all in connection and in collaboration with their families and the caregivers of our students. And all of those things to say is that it really does have a positive impact on our whole community. I think with just being able to support our students in multiple ways, it really aligns in creating partnerships with everything else that we have available, not only just in the city of San Helena, but in the larger Napa County. And we're a very fortunate community because we do have a lot of social services and a lot of partners who are just ready to jump in. This is a video that we have. We don't need to show it right now, but I do encourage you all to watch the video because it really does speak to the reason for why not only to focus on the behavioral health of the student, but also incorporating the physical health. And as Miriam was mentioning right now, it's even more important for us in this community because we are a rural community who, unfortunately, some of these medical services that our students access are not located in the city of San Helena. They're located in Santa Rosa or the city of Napa. So our families are having to travel and students are having to miss not just 1 hour for their medical appointments, but even a full day of instruction. And in regards to why it's also important, I think this has been something that has been coming up a lot in our board meetings, but mostly today. It's that our students are struggling. The two main mental health challenges that our students struggle with are anxiety and depression. And with COVID and the pandemic and everything that has changed since then, these two are the ones that keep coming up, and even more since then. And these are just some visuals of what we currently have downstairs. Really, the students are going to be the ones directing the work, even just speaking to the design of how a wellness center looks. These are visuals from other health and wellness centers in nearby communities. And one of the things that I really want to focus on is that this work is not just the school district, but it's in collaboration with our community partners. It's in collaboration with students. And one of those things that we did is that we started with an introductory planning meeting where we actually came together, district staff, high school staff, and also community partners to really talk about what is it that we're thinking? Where are we at? Because a lot of these things are actually already in place, especially for behavioral health services. And where are we looking to go next? So some of the things that we have accomplished so far is that we do have an MOU with Valley Family Center to help in the planning of the Health and Wellness Center. So Indira is one of my partners that I communicate with to kind of move this process along. We did hold the first steering community partner meeting that I just showed in the previous slide. And then we are working closely now to try to explore what the physical services will look like. And that's in collaboration with the San Helena Hospital Foundation and Ole Health. So those are two of our main providers for services in regards to what students have in their networks. So we are working really closely with them. And one of the things that I want to highlight is that right from the beginning, when we presented this information to the Hospital Foundation and Ole Health, there was an immediate response to want to do this work and partner with us to provide the services. So we are engaging with them, and we're also creating needs assessments. We actually have needs assessments that will be going out this month for students, parents, teachers, and the community to inform us of what their needs are and where we want to go next in this process. Because once again, voice of all involved is really important. The Hospital Foundation and Ole Health have met with us in separate meetings to start looking at what the services will look like and what is it that we want to start with. And one thing that we want to do is that we want to pilot the physical health services with mobile clinics. So we're actually in conversation with Ole Health and the San Elena Hospital Foundation to hopefully start something in April, May, and try to see what the response is from the community, if what the use is, and how we can use that information to inform what we do next in terms of including physical medical health services.
Would you like to say anything about it? Sure. Oh, well, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity for At Valley Family Centers to be considered a partner on this, in this effort. I want to thank also the Napa Valley Vintners Association, because they are the ones who are providing the funding for the SHINE initiative, which is a mental health services access to the youth in Napa County. So through their funding, with their funding, we're going to be able to purchase some of the equipment that is needed for the wellness center. Roxana and I are going to be, collecting that list of things that we need with, input from the students. Obviously, we want to know what they want to see in the wellness center, and then we're going to go shopping, so which is great. But more than anything, to be able to provide the services on site for our students. One important thing that we have to keep in consideration is that also we have a large number of students who are that are under the medical insurance, and for those students, the local private medical services are not available because the doctors do not take medical as an insurance in San Helena. So these students are forced to go somewhere else to receive the services. The local clinic, Ole Health, is very small, and many times they don't have enough space for appointments. So our students had to go all the way to Napa for health reasons, for dental services, for hearing services. So having them, these service providers doing the work here on site is super, super important. So anyway, thank you, and we are super excited with this opportunity.
I think we just want to close it with saying that we're in the right direction right now, and we're excited with how far we've come. And Roxana and I get off phone calls with St. Helena Hospital Foundation and Clinical Aid, and we both just say, wow, this is going to happen. They're so excited to partner with us. And we're also anticipating trying to work out, because nobody wants to step on anybody's toes. So we will also try to be working with Kaiser as well. But we already have things in process for the foundation and for Clinical Leg, because they know there's a need here as well. And we're certainly going to be looking at what's available, what can we do, what are the MOUs, what do we need parent permission for. So we're working all of those details out, but I can tell you the partners are ready to work with us. And the foundation already started with doing all the physicals at the high school, St. Helena, and that was just part of the first meeting. They said, yeah, we're ready. And they're so ready to do additional stuff. And same with Clinical Aid. They know that they're not servicing enough in the clinic up here, and that's why we're going to start with a mobile clinic and start having folks that are already in their network just schedule their appointments up here. And so it's just, it's super exciting, and we can't wait. So.
That's fantastic. Is there anyone present who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item, or anybody via Zoom? No? Okay, trustees, questions or comments about this agenda item?
I actually have a couple. What a surprise. One of the things you talked about, the wellness clinic is going to have a mental health focus. We heard just earlier about all the different people we have supporting that, so I'm curious, how does that change? Is it just location?
No, so we're actually, in terms of location, we are considering the first floor of Vintage Hall to be the Health and Wellness Center for the high school. And that is already the space that houses our behavioral health services, which includes the mental health clinicians. And that also includes the partners that we have who are not just assigned to or assigned to come, just like our contractor therapists are, but includes Napa County Mental Health, other agencies in the community, mental health agencies in the community that see students through their health insurance, but we are providing a space for them to come see the student here so that the student doesn't have to go to them in Napa or elsewhere. And that's through MOUs, and we have built some of those just this past school year as well.
Okay, thank you. And then you talked about doing a needs assessment with our community. How will you do that type of survey?
Sure. So we develop a survey that is going to be sent to the faculty at the high school. That is one. We have a specific survey for students, and we also have a survey for parents. Those, the student and the parent surveys are translated into Spanish, and we're going to be calling the parents. That's, the Spanish-speaking parents. We're going to have a group of women volunteers who are going to be calling them to get their input into, the different things that they want to see in the wellness center. And what are the aspirations for their children, for their health? And, the students, what do you want to see in the wellness center, right? What type of services are you interested to see? Would you come and, what type of snacks would you like to have available, right? And so we are asking different questions to all the three groups included to get an idea of what is it that we're going to be offering at the wellness center.
And then I'll just add, in terms of how we're sending it, we're going to try different methods of sending it. For the students specifically, I'm working with the leadership team, specific group in leadership that's focused on mental health. They're helping us develop a small video clip introducing what is the Health and Wellness Center, what's the purpose, and why are we asking you to complete the survey, and also to seek more student volunteers in not only participating in informing it, but also in the design, putting everything together. I come from a previous place where I had a health and wellness center at a high school, and that's what drives students to come to the center, that it's their center, and they're the ones designing. They're the ones doing the murals on the walls, choosing the furniture. All those things really matter to them as well. So that's how we're trying to do different methods of getting the input.
And then if it's community, how we have retirees in the community that have the same problems reaching Napa. I'm just curious, because if those might be grandparents taking care of the students, what's that message in terms of, because it's community-based? Students, not parents, not grandparents. I'm just, like, when word gets out, like I heard it on the grapevine, there's a wellness clinic with a van, a mobile clinic out in front of the high school. Can I sign up also because I live in St. Helena?
Well,
I know that's tricky, but I'm just...
No. It's not tricky. We've been talking about it, actually. I want you to know that this is targeted for the high school. But we clearly know that there will be some folks that are already in clinical lay that need to see a doctor up here. So we're working with clinical lay that if it's not a student that's with us, and let's say they have a kid that's at the elementary that needs to be seen here with a grandparent, we're not going to say no. But I can tell you that we are trying to strictly focus on the high school and keep it with our high school population. Okay. But we know it's going to expand a little bit.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Thank you. Trustees, any?
Well, then and my thought, just kind of to pivot off of yours, is and I was thinking about the students at Calistoga. Now, is that maybe long term something where those students would be able to use it too, just because we're kind of like a little bit closer to them and not as
it's not really geared for Calistoga. I mean, they'll be working with Indira is right here, who deals with Calistoga as well.
Well, that's what I was
So yeah, they'll be setting up their own networks up there. Perfect. But this is strictly trying to keep our population here and case manage our population.
Okay, okay. And that was my only question I had. But I do want to share that I, at the CSBA conference, I went to a workshop on wellness centers, and it was Oxnard Union High School District. And some of the things, the kind of the key things that I took from that, and I hear the same things from you, is wraparound services, and destigmatizes those seeking mental health services, provide an environment that students will walk in on their own, and student-centered. So, and there was several others, but those are the ones that kind of stood out at the time and still are at this time. So thank you very much for all your work on this. Thank you. And,
And
your,
I know
and your excitement, too.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
super excited. I know Ben's back there, and he's been a partner with this as well. So I don't want you to think that the high school's not a partner with this. They are our partner.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Did you want to say? No. So, yes, it's very exciting, and I don't want to jinx it, but I sure hope it's ready to go by the start of next school year, even, right? Fully ready to go. On the lines of the destigmatizing, mental health services in particular, is there still going to be an opportunity for confidentiality, like for a student who may want to participate but is still not comfortable walking through those doors? I mean, is there still like even a physical space in the room for confidentiality, like a separate office? Yes? Okay. Okay.
So just the design of the health and wellness center is that it provides the confidential office spaces for those services, and then the actual long waiting area per se.
Yeah.
It's for all students to come, even if they're not coming to see a provider. There's going to be wellness activities, and it's just a space for them to feel comfortable.
Great.
A safe space.
Yeah, that's great. And I think my other question then was to Carolyn: is there buzz on campus about a wellness center?
The leadership class has been, as she mentioned, making videos for Saints Nation to go out, I believe this Friday. So we're trying to create that buzz. I've heard a few people talk about it in the quad, and there's posters also around. So we're trying to get the word out and make sure that it's utilized, because it is a great program, and I'm sure all of our students will benefit.
That's great. Thank you very much. It's very exciting, and thank you for all your work as well on it. We look forward to it. Okay, item 11B is the presentation of the 2022-23 St. Helena Primary School Site Strategic Plan. Hello, Principal Rocha.
Good evening, everyone, members of the board and Superintendent Aurelio, and members of the cabinet, Assistant Superintendent. This is the St. Helena Primary School LCAP update. So I won't read a lot of this for you. A lot of these are the same goals that the district has in their LCAP. What I do want to point out is that I hope that you will see through much of this plan, of the highlights that I've chosen to present to you, is that we're really focusing on equity. And as you can see in that visual, this is something that was shared. You may have seen something similar to this, but this particular one was shared with us at our CAPS PLC network. And just really that idea that different students need different supports to access the same thing. So hopefully you will see that in my presentation. This is goal 1. And what I wanted to highlight on this under actions, so you'll see for each goal, I just chose some of our actions from our plan to highlight, is that our what we are now calling our guiding coalition, which is our instructional leadership team. We participate in the CAPS network. And really what we do, what we're learning in that or through that organization, is how to do a professional learning community, which I know you've heard that term a lot, and really you might wonder what exactly is that. And it's really focused on those 4 questions. So for every student, every week, teachers are holding meetings and analyzing data and student work, and really thinking and talking about what is that we want students to learn. How will we know that they've learned it, which is usually through an assessment? What will we do if they don't learn it? And what will we do for those students that already know that? So they're in constant professional conversations weekly around those 4 questions. And I have to say, I invite any of you to come and participate in one, of course, with the teacher's permission, but you will be very impressed with these weekly PLCs that they hold about student learning. So these are some of the actions that accompany that first goal. We're in our second year of guided language acquisition design, GLAD training. I'll tell you, you've heard that before from some of the things I've said, and I have a picture on the next slide that I'll talk a little bit more about that. We just spent 2 days this week with the trainers, yesterday and today. They were on our campus all day long. Teachers were doing demonstration lessons for each other, kind of as a coaching mechanism. So teams of 5, well, actually 6 of us, including the 2 coaches, watched different teachers teach a lesson using these strategies and then gave feedback to those teachers. It was very, very brave of them to have a group to be in their room, but really to learn from them. And we're just so grateful that the teachers are willing to provide that learning for the rest of us. We also adopted the updated version of our benchmark, our language arts curriculum, phonics program this year. And then we aligned our literacy goals and cut points to really make sure that we had a clear understanding of each trimester what data would prove students to be proficient, meaning at grade level, strategic, slightly below grade level, but making progress, and then intensive, kids that really maybe are more severely below grade level and still working on foundational skills. So we really solidified that this year. As you know, we have reading and math intervention teachers. That also determines which kids go to intervention and how will they get out of it by meeting those different cut points. And then another thing that we started this year was that we created curricular teams for 4 subjects at our school. Our teachers work really well together, but what I found when I came last year was that they weren't necessarily articulating across grade levels, so from kinder through 2nd grade. So starting this year, we have a team, ELD, English Language Development, math, literacy, and I can't think of I'm too tired. Writing. Our language arts, which encompasses writing and those reading standards. Those are the 4 teams, and we meet once a month. And so there's a representative from each grade level. They're really zeroing in on, for example, writing. Do our graphic organizers align from kindergarten to 2nd grade? Do our supports for students align? So that's something that has been really, really helpful at our site this year. This is just an artifact to give you an example of when you hear about GLAD strategies. This is just one strategy. So GLAD it's not curriculum, it's strategies that teachers learn to teach the curriculum. So for example, one of the strategies is a pictorial input chart, which you can see on the left that says step 1. So this is an example of 2nd grade. They're learning about landforms. So the step 1 is that the teacher, and these strategies can be used for any grade level, even into high school. The teacher is presenting all of this information visually to students, and this happens over the course of several days. Step 2 would be that the students are writing what's called a cooperative strip paragraph. So the teacher might start with the topic sentence. So they're writing about rivers, and then in a team, they're each writing a detail that goes with that topic sentence. And then that becomes a whole paragraph. And then the day 2, after they've put these sentences together and written a paragraph, the teacher is literally ripping and cutting apart their sentences to make them correct and working through that writing process with them. And then you can see under that, step 3 would be that the student themselves independently is working on writing that paragraph. So it goes from whole class with those supports and scaffolds to team work, writing sentences to align with the topic, and then the individual writing that paragraph. And that's a 2nd grade teacher. So this is our 2nd goal, which I won't read all of this to you. I think a lot of this has been mentioned tonight about the school-based therapists and all the support that we have for social emotional. Our multi-tiered system of support team meets weekly, and I just found a visual that just illustrates who is on that MTSS team. And we go through a process every single week where we're talking about different groups of students at our school. We're looking at attendance. We're looking at, are there any students in crisis? What about our newcomer students? And then we're also progress monitoring those students that we're most concerned about, which are our tier 3 students who are below grade level. And that tier 3, we're also monitoring students that we may not be below grade level, but we have social emotional concerns about those students. So we are in constant conversation about those students. This was our goal 3, and we're so excited this year. As many of you were able to attend that joint event that we had with the elementary school, which will now launch into year 2, our Fiesta de Octubre, which was a wonderful, just really, truly, we had more people there than we even expected. And it was just a beautiful celebration that there was just such a, there were English-speaking parents, Spanish-speaking parents, and it really felt like it was a community celebration. We also started this year a special needs parent support group. I happen to have a daughter who's severely disabled, and I thought that that would be a great thing that I could facilitate in the community. We're trying to grow that group. So far, we've only had parents from the primary school, but we're getting the word out with the other schools. And I know that it's been really, the main goal of that group is just to give those parents an avenue to get to know each other, because it can be very isolating when you're raising a child with a disability. We're doing our coffee chats, Dr. Emery and I together monthly, which has been great. And then she and I usually do a Zoom meeting in Spanish, because a lot of our Spanish-speaking parents aren't attending PTG, which is in person, and aren't able to get to the coffee chats, and they're actually finding more success joining via Zoom. So we've gotten up to 30 people on Zoom at our Spanish-speaking meetings, which has been great. And then we've had 2 family reading nights at the public library. We kind of shifted from doing, trying to do more social things and then adding in an educational piece. So we just had a night this week at the library on Tuesday, and the staff and I took the students to the children's area while the librarian stayed with the parents and gave them a little training on how to make sure they're helping their kids pick the just right books that they can read. Sometimes you see little kindergartners walking out with like a Harry Potter book, and you're like, that's nice, but you can't really read that. So that training was, of course, we don't want to ever discourage them from getting any book they want, but really making sure that they have the tools to help their kids pick out books that they hopefully can read. So we've had great attendance with both of those events. I think we had over 100 people at the library on Tuesday. And then these are just some of the things for goal 4. I won't read through all of them. I think a lot of it's things that you've heard tonight mentioned already. One of the things that I do want to highlight is that Dr. Emery, Roxana, and I planned a professional development day for our staff on one of the VA days. I believe it was January. And we were really trying to help our staff understand, just have a better understanding of some of the experiences of our parents, our immigrant parents. So we developed just some questions. We had some very brave parents that you can just see some examples of our questions. One we did on video. She couldn't come in person. We were going to record all of them, and then 2 of the moms said, we really want to come in person to share our stories with the teachers. And it was teachers from both schools and the classified staff. And I will say that there were teachers that had tears in their eyes. They had no idea that some of our parents had these experiences. And I think we also had a student share an experience, a newcomer student from the high school. Roxana had a video of similar questions. And really, it was up to them how much information they wanted to share with us. But I will really say that the teachers were really moved by that day. And some of them have commented afterwards that I just have heard in some of the questions that they have as we talk about student needs, that they're taking some of these stories that the parents shared with them, and it's really helping them understand that some of their students are coming from very different backgrounds than they have, and just really helping them have that different perspective so they can, really reach them in the classroom. So that is it. Do you have any questions or comments?
1 second. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No. Any online comment? Okay. Trustees, questions, comments about this agenda item?
I just wanted to say thank you, because I'm really touched by what you're doing to drive a sense of community and outside of the school. Like almost all you talked about was not about the student achievement. That was all after hours type work. It looked like.
Yeah.
And I would also, how do we? And I'm sorry, I say this as a we because I'm on parent groups also. How do we model the Zoom format for other schools for parent feedback that we're not necessarily successful at today? I would seek guidance on that. And then going to your GLAD strategy, I don't know if that crosses over schools, but the visual, I just thought that, I mean, I literally still just used the little bubble thing with my 3 key topics coming out with my college freshmen this year. So the visual things, they stick with you. So I mean, it just resonated with me. Yay, it's starting that young, and let's continue it on so that I don't have to do that with college freshmen later. So, but thank you.
Trustees, anybody else? No?
Well, I know when I did my presentation and a lot of the things that you explained to me and you discussed again tonight, I just get so excited about our primary school. I think it's just such an amazing experience for young families that are coming, and it's just such a good solid foundation for the rest of their years here at the school district.
And I agree with both of what you said, and that's easy for me to ditto that. And to have that much parent engagement at such young ages is exactly what we have wanted for many years, and we're now seeing it kind of coming to fruition. So thank you to your entire team, you and your team for getting, and Dr. Emery and your team for putting all of this together and kind of making so that it's like a smooth transition from the primary school into the elementary school. So thank you very much.
I also wanted to say I really appreciate that you've created the special needs parent support group, and how you spoke on parents can feel isolated and difficult to feel like part of the community. And so I think that's a really, really special group. Thank you so much.
Carolyn, do you have anything you want to say? I don't want to leave you out if you want to say anything.
Thank you. I think it's evident that what you do touches the whole community and really is fostering a wonderful new generation. So thank you.
And as I was looking over that report, I was thinking, really, congratulations. I think there is, under your leadership, there has been some significant advances made. And literally, I almost kind of choked on my water when you said you had 100 people at the library event, because that is astounding. We haven't seen that kind of turnout. I know I'm out of the system for a while, but that's really, really impressive. And congratulations to you both on that. And to echo what is said, what I feel is being built at the primary school is a sense of community. And when those people, when they start out there, that is hopefully a mindset and behavior that follows them all the way through senior year, their families and the students. So, congratulations. And I would say, if the teachers do give you the blessing, I would love to come to a PLC if they're comfortable with that, strictly to observe, because we are hearing so much about PLCs, and I would love to sit in and just see how that conversation evolves. So feel free to let us know if that's an opportunity. Thank
you for your comments. I just have to finish with saying we have an incredibly strong team at the primary school. They make my job so much easier. I've worked in other schools, and they are just so highly competent and professional, and always wanting it to, almost to a fault, wanting to do better. Sometimes we have to say, wait, just do a little bit less. You're a little bit stressed out. They are just constantly pushing themselves to do the best for students, and the classified staff as well. Every single detail of any event. We had Angela Baxter has provided so much food for us this year because every event we're providing meals. So it's really just the whole team. So thank you
that's
for your
great.
feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's showing, so thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody good on there? Okay. All right. Thanks. All right. Okay. 11C is the consideration of approval for full day kindergarten for the 2023-24 school year. Mr. Heller.
Yes, good evening. For several years, the state of California has been discussing legislation that would mandate full-day kindergarten for our students, for all students in the state. Research conducted by California First Five obviously shows that students who participate in kindergarten are much more successful when they enter first grade and then beyond. The foundation is laid there. So as kindergarten is not required, there was an Assembly Bill, Assembly Bill 197 that was brought forth in 2019 to the state of California that was approved by the Assembly and not signed by the governor. And then obviously COVID has, shuttered a lot of the conversations around that. So many districts have half-day programs because of facility constraints where they run a 3 to 4 hour AM/PM session for kindergarten to be able to manage their enrollment and provide some level of kindergarten. Obviously, we're not in that position with the staffing that we have. With the need that we see and support from the primary administration's recommendation, Ms. Rocha, and her staff, that they want to move forward with a full day kindergarten, which would add an additional hour to the kindergartner's day. This doesn't impact any facility, finance, or faculty. There are no impacts to any of those three. So it's not going to cost us anything more. It's not going to change any working conditions, and it's not going to impact any facilities. So it seems like the right move to help continue to support our students and our families to lay the foundation so they're successful in first grade. So I would ask the board to approve this.
Thank you. Is there anyone present or participating online who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
Yeah, I have a question. Currently, do the kindergarten teachers support the other teachers when their students are dismissed? And how would this affect that intervention? Or, I don't know if it's intervention,
While she's
but that
walking,
support?
the answer is yes, and
Great.
she can fill in what they actually do.
So last year was kind of a catch-up year, and we really focused on literacy. So this year we had so many second graders last year who were, they had missed so much time due to COVID. The kindergarten teachers really supported with creating more intervention groups. This year we had to get back on making sure that we were doing designated English language development. So we're doing that as a school the last half an hour of the day. And so right now they're being used as they're not necessarily needed at that time. They're providing enrichment for other kids, but that enrichment can be provided by the other classroom teachers. It's nice to have these tiny little groups, but it's not like we can do the newspaper club with 20 kids. We don't have to have 12 kids. So we have the luxury of these small class sizes regardless. And then the TK teacher will still be available to do intervention. So right now there is one kindergarten teacher doing some math intervention during that ELD time for kids that don't need English language development. So the TK teacher will not be having that extra hour, so she'll be the extra person that can do that.
And does it affect busing, pickup, anything like that?
Most of
change?
the students go to the Boys and Girls Club. There's only a handful of kindergarten students that get picked up at that earlier time. So if anything, it might be a few extra cars, but the majority of the kids, I think there's only 5 that don't go to the on-site Boys and Girls Club. So I don't see, and as it is, some of those kids just go to the Boys and Girls Club until the bus gets there, and then they get on the bus. So we have to find them, get them on the bus. So it might actually make it easier.
I actually didn't know you had an on-site Boys and Girls Club.
Just for kindergarten.
Okay.
Yes, they stay on site, which is great.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's it. So thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve full-day kindergarten as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 11D is the discussion of the LCAP community event. Mr. Heller, please.
Yes, last Wednesday, Carolyn already mentioned, we conducted an LCAP community event right here in the Vintage Hall boardroom, and we had about 65 participants ranging from community partners, administrator, district staff, and teachers. Yeah. And students. So the information that we gathered from that evening is we have collected that, and we'll begin to synthesize looking for themes, and I will present those themes to the board and the community at the April 20th meeting, as we are probably at that point pretty deep into revising our LCAP, but I do want to share the community partner feedback. What I'd like the board and student trustee Wagner to do tonight is just provide some reflections, maybe 3 highlights from the evening that you would like to share publicly, that I could record and you know, put into my notes for the development of the next LCAP. So President Pelosi, however you want to manage that. And
Thank you. I was going to ask for public comment, but I don't believe we have any. I think we'll just go on to moving on to the trustees. Is everybody comfortable if I just start with you, Carolyn? We'll just work down the line and you can start us off.
And it doesn't have to be 3. If it's just
Sure.
one sentence,
Okay.
that's fine too. You don't,
Okay.
don't feel obligated.
The LCAP was very enlightening for me. I got to sit with 2 of my peers, and what I really loved to see was their engagement in these questions. I could tell that they're taking it seriously and they're being thoughtful in their answers, and that it really felt like a whole community at one table. So it was the students talking with parents from other schools and really trying to understand the different perspectives and, you know, the different stakeholders in this community and in the district and within each 4 of our schools. So that was really wonderful. I definitely appreciated that there was a board member at every table and our superintendent. And I felt like it was nice that each table got to present some sort of feedback, so it felt like we were still being cohesive as a meeting.
Okay. I think what struck me most just at our table and hearing is that parents definitely want to be partners in the community, in our school community, and they want to be engaged. But I think there's not a one-size-fits-all solution to how to involve them. We talked about, is it before school? Is it after school? Is it evening? Is it lunch? And so I think we just have to find a way to have many options for people to be engaged, because we have to understand that there's a lot of outside factors that affect parents being able to be that part of the community, and we just need to be creative and offer options, different ways to be involved.
I had the unique opportunity to be at the Spanish-speaking table, which I loved because it was just out of my comfort zone, and I could pick up on as much as I could, but would peek over at Roxana's notes, which fortunately she was typing in English, and then I could ask a clarifying question. Can you tell me more about, drill into this comment a little bit more? I found the comments refreshing because it was actually the same themes and comments that I have heard before many times. Communication could be better. I think that there's more opportunities to meet the teachers at the secondary level, so RLS in the high school. That's a common theme that I've heard and also shared in this forum. There was a lot of conversation around the felt there's a gap in the amount of academic counseling that happens in terms of career paths, helping identify what you might like to do, and then understanding what CTEs to do. So there was just a whole big conversation around and the parents, how do they get involved and learn and know that it's happening? So it just felt like maybe a gap that we could help. So but it was wonderful.
I love the organization of the evening. Mr. Heller, I think you did a wonderful job as timekeeper. I thought you kept the flow of the event. It just was just a crisp, it was just really well organized. And I think that's a huge contributing factor to the success of the evening. The themes at our table were around intervention, differentiation, and cell phone policy. Lots of questions regarding those topics. And it was really, really nice having high school students attend the event. I was so pleased to have their input at each table. Thank you.
For our table, I really appreciated the participants at our table were very honest and authentic. I mean, they shared information that was really kind of personal and things to them, and so I really appreciated that. I really liked the meeting feeling kind of informal, but in a formal way. I mean, we knew what our task was. That made it formal, but it felt informal in the sense that parents were able to get to know each other and things when we were at the tables. So that was really nice. And as always, the students are the stars of the show, and I'm always happy to see students. So that's always a plus.
Ditto. No, I'm kidding. So yes, I'm going to echo student voice would be great. We had one student, and of course he's so articulate and it's perfect, but it would have been great to have 2 student voices per table, if at all possible. That would be just for another, more diverse opinion as well. I also loved the informality yet formal nature of it. I thought that flowed really well. You can't help but notice that when you attend enough of these things, there are a lot of the same people in the room, because, and that's a great thing as well. So to Jean Marie's point, however we can even more handpick certain parents to join in that kind of community feedback would be great. But I realize it doesn't, how do you find the perfect time, the location and all that? It's always a challenge, but it would be nice. And I was really happy to see that we did have at least one full table of Spanish speaking people there. I mean, parents, community members, that was fantastic. I mean, and that's great because Jeannie and I had a chance to talk to one of the parents afterwards, and it was just so nice to say they were excited to be there as well. So let's see. I think my main thing is when does the feedback come back and what happens with the feedback, because that was over the years. People would always say, well, I don't want to go anymore because I give and I don't know what happens with my, what happens with it. That's why I was making the joke with you that night about the parking lot. The parking lot makes me nervous because things go to the parking lot and they never leave the parking lot. So,
only one item made it to the parking lot that evening.
It was mine.
Yes.
But I think that's important that those people who did take the time to show up, they actually see they know what happens with their feedback. But to the other point of it is, it's also an education of knowing that, I think sometimes parents who are new to in community feedback events, they think, okay, well, I told you what I wanted and why did it happen? So it's also about learning that just because you show up and you say, well, that's not working and that needs to change in food services, doesn't mean it's going to change. Right. So I think sometimes there's a little education that's needed about that as well. And that comes with time and participation. But, I think that is a perception that's out there that if they speak, something comes to fruition from it.
Right.
So, but thank you for organizing it because it really felt like a great evening, and I thought the pace was great as well.
And I was thinking about this and I know that in the past we have sent out something similar survey, kind of a survey to all parents and teachers to see, to get their feedback and things. Is that something to be considered with these type of questions, or are we thinking about maybe something in the future, or?
Well,
is this something they're
typically
still-
we've done one or the other, because when we send out too much information, we get kind of convoluted where we've had a community conversation and then we send out the question and it doesn't land the same way, right? So we have to kind of capture it the way it is. So maybe next year we'll do the survey and we won't conduct the community feedback and we just do a parent survey. So we try different mediums and methods to reach everyone. So this year in particular was an in-person event, so I'm going to try to use those themes. I would also have to coax my resident survey creator to help me do that at some point, if that was something we would need to do. So let me have an opportunity to look at the themes that were provided. I'll do that here in the next couple of weeks, and obviously that'll come back on the 20th of April. And if you feel there's more information that needs to be gathered, we can certainly do that very quickly.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Can I just
you.
say one more thing? Yeah. I do appreciate the in-person events because it does help build community. And also, my question for you is it too complicated to have, for people who want to attend but can't be present, is it possible to have a Zoom breakout room just for the people who join us via Zoom with a facilitator? Don't need to answer, just something to think about in the future. Just curious.
It's possible. The Zoom, just from being in meetings in Zoom doesn't have that same feel as being here, and it's hard to manage a Zoom room because you'll get more people in there and not everybody will have an opportunity to speak. One of the things that we really wanted our facilitators to do is to make sure that everybody at the table had a chance to answer part of the question. And I'm not sure that would have that same feel in a Zoom room, but it's good feedback. We may conduct a town hall and just in a Zoom format, and that would maybe allow more people to participate. But then you lose that in-person connection. So
Sure.
it always kind of lands in that there's not a perfect way, there's not a perfect time, and that's why we've tried over the years to do in-person or a survey, just to kind of be able to mix it up a little bit. So that's definitely a consideration. Sure.
Okay, thanks.
I wonder too if childcare, if that's something we could ever offer, or am I opening up to liabilities? Because that was one of the things people are like, well, I want to come, but now I'm paying, $15, $20 an hour to have a sitter. If we could have some type of child care outlet.
We
for
had
people.
childcare that evening, and we only had 4. Yeah, so that's okay. It was part of the survey, the sign up. If folks needed childcare, we could have. We had 2 people on duty that were employees, and so we were able to accommodate that. And obviously, if it got large, then we'd have some other management issues as far as facilities. But I thought the evening turned out very well overall, and was well attended and provided really a good lens for us to work off of for our 3rd year of the LCAP. So thank you all for participating as well.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Just one more thing, as I was listening to it, I guess when I think back of the inclusivity and hearing everyone's voice, I do feel a little bit like maybe as part of the recap or playing out the themes that were heard, if that's sent back to the community and have them at least have ability to, if it's a Google form, fill out similar questions, or I just feel like we could be missing the community members that couldn't be there. How do they get a voice heard? Because they may not know. By reading back what they heard, they may have additional comments, and I just don't want to miss an opportunity to have someone say, I wish I had known this is what it was about and I would have told you this. I know it creates work, so I don't know how to balance that other than I would offer to help sift through, but I don't want to miss it. And even if it's going to principal coffee chats that sound like they're well participated, or, just to collect a little bit more.
At any time, anybody can email myself or Mary with anything that they'd like to share on, those themes were out there on community partner engagement, social emotional, learning and awareness, and then the profile of a high school graduate. So if there's anything, it doesn't have to be a Google form. It could just be as casual as an email or a phone call, and then we just record that information. But it is hard with the capacity, because now I have to take all that information and start doing that. And if I open up a survey, then that just delays that process a little bit more. And so I really kind of wanted to be about the community event that evening to take the themes that were shared in
I
that
would not
discussion.
delay. Sorry.
That's
I
okay.
agree. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Heller, you have enough from us?
Aye.
Okay, good. All right. Moving on, 12A is the consideration of approval for sunshine proposal for St. Helena Unified School District to SHTA for collective bargaining negotiations 2023. Mr. Heller.
Yes, the district has opened the negotiations process with St. Helena Teachers Association to outline the 23-24 school year. And as part of good faith efforts with SHTA and negotiations, their leadership has agreed to open Article 12, which was slated to be open next year as part of next year's negotiations, in an attempt to try to create a 2-year agreement. So the process tonight is sunshining the district's interest in opening Article 12, and I would ask that the governing board approve that.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the sunshine proposal for St. Helena Unified School District to SHTA for collective bargaining as presented?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. 12B is the consideration approval for the initial sunshine proposal from St. Helena Unified to CSEA number 287 for collective bargaining negotiations 2023. Mr. Heller.
Yes, and in the same vein of sunshining our article of interest, it is Article 15, wages, and I believe it's just wages with CSEA. So this would sunshine that one article for us to begin the negotiations process with CSEA, our other bargaining group.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the sunshine proposal for St. Helena Unified School District to CSEA for collective bargaining as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 12C is review and consider approval of a 10th contract amendment for Christopher Heller, Chief Academic Human Resources Officer.
Alrighty. So, and I know the title says they're Chief Academic
Yes.
Human Resource Officer.
Yes.
And we know at the last board meeting we did approve a title change. So tonight we're bringing the 10th amendment to Mr. Heller's contract, which would adjust the title, which is already approved. It would also adjust the vacation days, which was also already approved. And what we're asking is an extension of his contract for an additional year. It doesn't change the compensation structure, benefits, anything like that.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 10th contract amendment for Christopher James Heller, Chief Academic / Human Resources Officer as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora.
Aye.
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Heller.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just read your full name because I'm required by law to do that.
I'm going to start using his full name.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. Okay, so now we're getting in. Andy's been sitting there so patiently. Bring us home, exactly. 13A is the review and consider approval of the 2022-23 second interim report. Andy Stubbs, please.
Second interim report for 2022-23, and tonight we'll review some of the changes since the board approved the first interim report in December. So this first slide here shows the changes in revenue compared with first interim, and the biggest change would be the booking the learning loss recovery funds, and this is a one-time pot of money. It's actually going to be about twice that amount that you see there, but we're booking the revenue as we receive it. For 22-23, and this is a fairly flexible resource, and what the board has approved during a prior board meeting is to authorize the transfer of some expenses, general fund expenses, to this account in order to free up some of the reserve to address the project increase for the RLS track and field, and so the board approved that some time ago. So that would be the biggest change to revenue. With regard to expenses, of course, now as we're going from first interim to second interim, we're just seeing some small changes to our budget, to our overall budget of over $44 million. And the second interim report does now include a new education services assistant position, which is a net increase of 0.80 FTE. And this position, I believe, came at a prior board meeting. The job description did. And so, but with some other budget adjustments we were able to make, we were able to absorb that increase. And then the largest change to expenditures would be in services and operating expenses. And as we are booking some of the additional revenue, then we're also booking some additional expenses there. And so the $519,000 increase is virtually all on the restricted side of the house as we're adjusting those accounts. And then, of course, we book local donations, scholarships and such as received. The next few slides show some of the factors, the assumptions that we have built into the multi-year projection. And so, for example, on this slide, you can see that we are budgeting in current year for a property tax increase of 4% compared with 2021-22, and then the out years we're budgeting a 2% increase. And then towards the bottom there, you can see that we are pulling out the District of Choice revenue in 24-25 should the board decide to withdraw from that program and consider instead an alternative interdistrict transfer policy. Let's see, on this slide here, the most notable item to point out would be at the very bottom where it describes a statutory cost of living adjustment. That for us just applies to certain special programs such as special education and food services, because unlike our revenue sharing district neighbors, we don't benefit from the COLA applied to our property tax revenue. And then on this slide here, what I'd like to point out is I'm happy to report that the STRS pension increases have leveled out finally, but PERS is still going up, and so we're projecting a 27% contribution in 23-24 and a little over 28% in 24-25. So all these factors are built into the multi-year projection numbers that are included in the financial reports. And then here at the top there where we see the adjustment for projected savings, I forgot to include also the projected savings for our CalPERS retirement incentive. And so combined, the final calculations for that are estimated at about $323,000 between STRS and PERS, 1 year savings. And then, of course, in current year, we'll be paying for the cost of that retirement incentive using some of the reserve for that. And then also on the slide 2, if I can point out, we still have our the restoration of our contributions to deferred maintenance, which we talked about at first interim, and also a planned restoration of the contribution to Fund 40, our special reserve for capital outlay plan for the out years. And then also a restoration of the budget for future-ready classrooms. And then this slide here is the key slide that shows you kind of our bottom line. So do we have a projected deficit or a surplus to the general fund balance? And like first interim, we are projecting a surplus to the fund balance. It's a little bit higher at second interim, and that mainly has to do with shifting some expenses to some restricted resources, and additionally just some adjustments to accounts like supplemental pay and so forth that we are doing mid-year. And so I'm pleased to report then that we have a healthy projected reserve at the second interim, and again a surplus to the fund balance. And then the next time you'll see the 2022-23 financial information will be with the original budget report for 23-24, and you'll see 2022-23 information come back in the form of estimated actuals. And so between now and the end of the year, I'll be updating this year's budget figures again. We'll be completing the actual interfund transfer of the $3.3 million from Fund 17 to Fund 40 for the RLS track and field project. We will be performing the interfund transfer of $2 million from Fund 01 to Fund 40 for the roof renovation and the other projects that the board discussed during the January meeting. We will be booking the accrual for the STRS and PERS retirement incentive costs, and then we are also slated to get about $719,000 in wildfire backfill payments. And I just heard from the county office today, in fact, that said that that was coming within the next few weeks. And so we talked about actually using that first towards the RLS track and field cost increase before tapping into the learning loss recovery funds for that. So I'll be evaluating that soon. And so then the second interim report will go to the County Office of Ed for review, and we will be submitting that with a positive certification confirming that we can meet our financial obligations in the current and subsequent 2 years. And then very soon here I'll be working with Mr. Heller and Ms. Allen on developing the LCAP and preparing to bring you a budget during the May board meeting for public hearing, followed by adoption along with the LCAP during the June board meeting. And with that, I would ask the board to consider approving the second interim report.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I have one quick one, Auntie. And I think I know the answer, but the wildfire backfill payment, so it's not restricted to anything. It's completely non-restricted money. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. Interesting.
That was one of my questions as well.
I have one on slide 7.
Mm-hmm.
So this was I won't even try to describe it, but it's the PERS. You were talking about the PERS rate increase. So that is increasing year over year. There we go. I don't even know which row that is, but the 25.37% to 27 and then 28.10%. Of what? Sorry, I'm just trying to understand what that means.
That's a good question. And so the employer, the district, has to pay a certain percentage of the payroll to CalPERS for our classified retirement pension. And so for both STRS and PERS, there is an employee contribution, an employer contribution, and which is what you see there as a percentage of the salaries. And then there's also a state contribution for STRS and PERS, actually.
So it's basically the percent that we are putting into the retirement fund based on the amount of the employee's salary.
Exactly.
So if you do very simple, if they make $100, we're putting in $25.37, and they're putting in a amount.
Yes,
And
that's
that is
exactly right.
increasing every year, the amount we have to put in also.
Yes, hopefully it'll level out soon. For many years, both STRS and PERS, the employer's amount remained fairly steady. I remember STRS was, I think, 8.88% for the longest time, but there came to be an unfunded liability for both of those pension programs. And so the way that it was addressed was by increasing the employer rate pretty substantially. And so STRS is finally leveled out, and we're still seeing some increases to PERS, and then hopefully that'll level out soon as well.
That was going to be my question, is what's driving an increase? So, okay. And that's set by California.
Yes, it's set by STRS and PERS. And so we are provided with projections on those factors, and we build those into our calculations for the multi-year projections.
And does the teacher amount also change, or is that set?
Well, the teacher amount had actually been increasing for several years, and it's finally now leveling out at the 19.10%.
And if I remember correctly, this has been increasing each year now for like 5 or 6 years. Is that correct? Maybe even more?
Yes.
Andy, just to refresh my memory as well, please, on the consumer price index, the projections for the outgoing years, is that a figure that's already solidified, or is that your educated projection?
So it's solidified. It could potentially change, but I believe it's at least solidified at this point for 23, 24. It could change for the out years still.
Okay.
And so where I get a lot of these projections is from School Services of California, our financial advisors, and they provide what's called a dashboard, which I include in all of our financial reports. And so they provide these factors for a few years out.
Okay. Thank you. You asked my other question. Anybody else have another question? Okay. Thank you, as always, for making it so presentable for us and digestible. I appreciate that, as always. Oh, one moment, please, while I get back to my agenda. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the 2022-23 second interim report as presented?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. 13B, the first review of the 2023-24 budget assumptions. Andy, please.
Thank you. And this is the first review of the budget assumptions for 23-24. This is a document that was started years ago to provide some detail and transparency about what goes into the district budget. We update it every year and share it with the Business Operations Committee and, of course, the board. The Business Operations Committee will have the opportunity to review and discuss it during their final meeting coming up in April. And this is going to come back. It's a working draft, and so it's going to come back to the board during each board meeting until adoption in June. And as we go through the document, we'll just cursor through it. There's a lot in there, but the items shaded in blue are financial figures that we're going to populate later. And that'll be finalized as we get into the May and June versions. And then items in yellow is additional language or language that has changed from last year. And this document has really kind of grown and expanded over the years. And there's a lot of yellow for this go-round because there's just lots of new one-time and ongoing restricted revenue sources. And we want to be able to describe those and provide information about that. And for example, if we look at page 4, of the document, there is a lengthy paragraph there about the one-time arts, music, and instructional materials block grant. And so this is a little outdated at this point because the board approved the expenditure plan for this funding source, I believe, during the February board meeting. And so I just haven't had the opportunity to go back and then kind of update this language, but I'll be combing through these budget assumptions several more times and then making sure that they are very accurate with whatever the most recent information is that we have. And then if we go through the document a little further, the biggest change to the assumptions is actually something that I added at the very end, starting on page 13, I believe, 13 and 14. And this new supplemental section has to do with, there it is right there, there's the title, and then we get into the meat of it starting on page 14. And so this new supplemental section helps to answer the question, who funds what with regard to enrichment and enhancement? Because over the years, the district has started to contribute more and more for enrichment and enhancement because costs have gone up, and especially related to transportation. And so it's really become unclear as to how we manage that. And so with the help of representatives from our PTGs and our foundation, we've developed this document to try and answer that question. And so the first part of it talks about what the different funding sources are and what constitutes basic expenses versus enrichment and enhancement. And then if we go a little farther down, we'll see some descriptions about PTG and the foundation. And then if we cursor down a little bit farther, there's a section on student fees, and it answers that question because a few years ago there was an ACLU decision that came down that determined that charging most student fees were unconstitutional. And so we want to be really transparent with our parent community and the public about what we can charge. And then if we go down a little bit further, then we start to get into some sections that describe the decision-making process. So how do we decide who pays for what with regard to enrichment and enhancement? And interestingly, as I've done an analysis of these budgets over the past couple of months, it's really kind of a 50-50 split in terms of our local partners contributing towards things and the school district for paying for things. And there's really very few things that the parents contribute towards beyond any donations that they're making to PTG and to the foundation. So it was a very interesting project to undertake. And so we really attempt kind of a deep dive on answering those questions and being very transparent about how we make decisions. And then we've got a table for each school that depicts who funds what, and it's based on what the PTG has supported this year, and then what it seems that they're able to commit to for the following year. And what we're also trying to do here is over the next couple of years, just really kind of solidify the plan for funding some of these things so that there's no ambiguity out there. And then on the last page, I do have this section that provides some clarity around how we're funding outdoor ed for 5th grade and then Yosemite as well. And those were kind of two key areas because there's been some concern on the part of parents that if we don't contribute enough or we're not able to raise the funds, then the trip is going to be canceled. So we wanted to assuage those fears and really kind of have a long-term plan, especially using some of the remainder of the one-time Kaiser grant funds and then transitioning things over to the general fund when those are spent. To really just develop a plan so everybody's on the same page for how we're going to cover those, and encouraging parents to make a very modest donation, but then recognizing that if we're not able to raise that revenue, we have a backup plan. And so I've been working very closely with the principals to align their site budgets in such a way to make sure that we don't have any issues in that regard. And so then these budget assumptions will come back to the board next month with some new updates.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No. Okay. I just wanted to say one thing before what you just did in those budget assumptions, especially for having newer trustees, is a gift that I don't even know if everybody will fully understand what you've done. So that supplemental information is astounding, and thank you.
Thank you.
It is such a great education as they're starting to learn about the budget, and I'm sure Jeannie feels the same way. But I mean, it's great, Andy. Thank you very, very much for providing that. That's great historical context. It's great for having it as a document that the parent groups can pull from and everything else. And it really, I was reading that, I was like, she just gave us such a nice gift. It was lovely. But I have some questions, but I'm going to see if the trustees have any other questions here first, and then I'll go last. So if you have any questions. You guys are good? You have questions, or?
I just, as someone who worked with you on that, it's so, I thank you, because it's not just helping the district side, it's helping parent groups and it's helping foundation. And just for a little bit of background of where it came from is in COVID, the Give Big donations were very, it was very scaled back. And what we found is that the parent groups didn't have as much money to give as they gave historically. And it was, how do we do the right thing? And can we just clarify where we should be spending this money in the right directions for the students and staff? And it just kind of turned into this amazing clarification that there's not going to be confusion or frustration or finger pointing. So it's wonderful, and thank you, because you have a gift of making things simple too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I just again, it's a few clarifying questions, and it's probably more from memory than anything. Measure B and C funds are done, correct?
We still have approximately 321,000 remaining.
Okay.
However, of that, most of that will be used for the high school and primary school paging system projects.
Okay, thank you. And then the staff wellness that's in there, it's $10,000. Is that across all 4 sites and this building as well?
Yes.
Okay. That my other one on the food services, and this may be just projection on my point. We've as most of the state of California, we've been fortunate to receive funding from the state, so our contribution has been significantly less than it has been in years past. I guess my question is if that should go away from the state, because there's, if they take that away and all of a sudden, are we still in a position to fund it as we were funding it previously? And you probably can't really answer that knowing the accurate answer, but that I was reading that because we used to contribute like $550,000, and now we're doing, I think it's like 200,000. And I just worry again that if for some reason the state decides to pull that funding, then we have to go back up to $550,000. And are we able to meet that commitment?
I think that's a very good question. I think it's very highly unlikely that at this point in time we're going to veer away from universal meals for all, because it's become such an important issue. I think where we can address that would be establishing a set aside in the fund balance in the equivalent amount, much like and that's included in the budget assumptions also, as all the different assigned set asides that we have. So I think that would be a very good idea to establish that there.
Okay. And I think you already answered, but the Kaiser grant is $100,000, and that's the last of that.
That's the last of that, and the idea is the items that we're charging to the Kaiser grant, for example, a very small allocation for student wellness and field trips for each school. We've now moved that up to the general fund and include that in the site budgets.
Okay.
And then we're going to use the remainder, the $100,000 for a large contribution towards outdoor ed and Yosemite.
Okay.
And then when that's used up, then the plan will be, and that's memorialized to shift that.
Okay. Okay, sorry, I only have 2 more. Okay, I noticed the new line item for our assumption is for the board advocacy. There was $15,000. Now, is that like professional development for us? Does that include our CSBA, when we go to the conference? I wasn't sure where professional development for board members might live, and I know this advocacy has come up based on other opportunities that the board could attend, but I just wanted to understand if professional development dollars would live for us.
So we certainly always pay for CSBA and really any PD that the board is requiring. However, I do think it would be a good idea to maybe add that as an additional little distinction in the budget assumptions.
It might be just 'cause I just think it provides some clarity, you know, I mean, and it lives there to know that this is what, I mean, you know, really, the district has always covered anything that, you know, if you've wanted to attend something for professional development. I just wanted to make sure that that was, if they were separate or combined in that one $15,000, but you've answered that, so, okay, I think that's it.
Okay, I'm biting at the bit over here.
Okay,
Well,
take it
so,
away.
and in comment, some of the things that I'm thinking about, I was thinking the same thing as far as kind of pulling out a portion of for, and I'm even thinking governing board, superintendent, executive, cabinet, kind of, but that would be up to however you want to do as far as that. And I like the feeling of that because it's transparent as far as kind of what we're using for professional development. And it also gives us the opportunity as a board to say, hey, we have this money allocated to us. What conferences or what professional development do we want to go throughout the year? You know, so in a short sentence, we could like kind of see which conferences that each year is offered, and we can decide, you know, and we can be more coordinated in what we do. That's what I guess is what my thought is. More coordinated in what we plan to attend. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up in advance. Yeah. And then my question is so for like parent engagement type of programs, and I'm thinking similar to like the Sacramento program when you went with the parents on a bus to Sacramento. We know the buses are expensive. Does that live in parent education, the one on page 9? Is that where that would live, or do we need something extra for specifically parent engagement, speakers and?
It does live in that one, however, and then some of these newer expenses we've been charging to some of the one-time restricted funds and so forth. However, I also, in my meetings with the principals recently, I met with Principal Rocha and Dr. Emery, and they were describing a need for maybe a little extra pot of money for parent outreach and ELAC activities. And so I told them that I could then put that into their site budgets for next year. A small allotment that will help with just, you know, things like food and childcare and things like that for meetings, in addition to what we've carved out for parent education. And so that'll be added to these assumptions also.
And that's all I've got, so thank you.
Any other questions, trustees? No? Okay. Thank you again, Andy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think we're now moving on to 13C, contracts over $25,000 for March. Andy, please.
Thank you. And we only have one contract over $25,000 this evening with ABM Building Solutions, and this is for some chiller equipment for our Vintage Hall HVAC system. We have had an issue with this building. It keeps us very hot in the summer and very cold in the winter.
Yes, it does.
And during the January board meeting, when the board authorized $2 million to transfer to Fund 40, that included kind of an earmarked amount of about $350,000 for renovation of this project. But we need to move on ordering the chiller equipment because it's many weeks out, and we want to make sure we can get it here before the summer. And so meanwhile, Greystone West is assisting us with an overall scope and budget for renovation, and I hope to bring that to the board in April.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? And the answer was no. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 13D is to approve a revised resolution 22-37, opening a window for participation in the state authorized retirement incentive for classified employees. Andy Stubbs, please.
Thank you. During the October board meeting, the board approved a resolution opening up a window for retirement for classified employees through CalPERS for the 2-year retirement incentive, and we're required to open a window of at least 90 days, no more than 120 days. And so the board approved opening a window from May 1st through July 31st. And we have a couple of classified employees who, for personnel reasons, needed to retire May 1st. And so that was the first day of the open window. However, when the Napa County Office of Education was reviewing our paperwork and preparing to approve it, they noted a small provision in the CalPERS guidelines that said that the employee cannot actually retire on the first day of the window, which seems a little illogical perhaps. However, we were advised to go ahead and ask the board to approve a revised resolution, simply adding one more day to the window, April 30th, and then that very cleanly resolves this matter.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions on this agenda item? Okay. Thank you for so succinctly clarifying that provision. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-37 as presented?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, 14A, future agenda items. You can see that our next regular board meeting is April 20th in this very room. Those items are there. And I don't know if the trustees have any subjects for future agenda items or any clarification on anything listed there.
I don't.
I will add that the choir
that's what I
is
was
going
gonna
to be
say.
back.
Yeah.
They were
Yes.
supposed to be here this evening, but they will be at this next meeting.
Perfect. Perfect.
I have a question because we've had discussion about differentiation. I see a math update. Are we now incorporating differentiation discussion with our academic presentations and updates? How are we handling that?
I believe at the last meeting, we talked about the differentiation presentation in April, including that.
Okay.
But if that's different, please let me know, because the principals will begin working on that shortly.
Okay.
No, I think that
That's
was my
fine.
understanding.
Okay.
Right.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, so a math update, and then there'll be a separate report for differentiation from the principals. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that?
It's embedded.
Yeah.
It would be embedded, it would be together.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? No? Okay. I don't know if I should talk really slow or, okay, all right. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carried. Meeting ended at 9:06 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Derek, back there as well.